Time's up, Admiral.
Here it comes.
All kids out of the pool for Adult Swim. All kids out.
There we go. All better now. Man, titties are the greatest things on earth.
Yes, I wasn't been scratching itch on my forehead before it finished. Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome back to the Daily Dive, the Double Ds, where you, the chat, are in control. You are the content directors. You make it happen. And you've definitely made content for the next couple of days because definitely today we already got it. It is Warhammer Wednesday. It's Warhammer Wednesday, and Kel's already lined up our video for today, one that I am keenly interested to watch because I keep being told I need to choose my favorite Space Marine chapter. So I need to be influenced. So we're going to be watching some Space Marine lore today for Warhammer Wednesday. And Kel, I see that. Check with Alf, Kel. Check with Alf. He's the one organizing the stream. I'm just along for the ride. So check with Alf, see if he's got anybody lined up yet. That is what I can say for that. Anyway, okay, guys. Hope everybody's having a good Wednesday. I have gotten some sleep, and yes, I'm just trying to fix my hair because it still needs to get altered. I don't have time until Saturday to get it slightly checked, as she puts it. It needs to get a check because there's a couple parts are a little too long. There were some complications on Saturday when I was getting my hair cut that we didn't quite get it full finished. So it needs a couple of checks, needs a couple adjustments. So that's why I keep going like this. I keep messing with it because I'm not happy with certain parts of it. Am I vain? Yes. I am. I as old as I am, I still have all my hair. It's not gray. So I am very vain about my hair. I admit this. Okay, but Wednesday. We're gonna have a good show today. I've got my segment. I like my segment. I'm gonna be salty. I'm gonna be angry. And it's going to be an unpopular opinion, especially with the normified opinion of what I'm going to be talking about on my segment there. So it's going to be a good one. I'm happy to yell about it. It's something I've yelled about before, and the news we got yesterday on it's going to be yell about it again because it doesn't make sense. It can't make sense, but you'll get to that in a second. In other news, last night, I finished Expedition 33. Some of you were there. We had a good time. Apparently, there's a couple of issues, not in the game, but there's an alternate ending. We only did the one ending, so I don't know if everybody will be happy with the ending I chose, but you could check it out. It's still up on the main channel, hasn't finished processing. When it disappears, everything's going to be re-uploaded to the gaming channel where my entire quest through that, at least for the main story-wise. I did a lot of stuff off camera because I had to keep playing it for fun. Couldn't wait for the every day to stream because streaming games is always a little iffy and touch and go in terms of scheduling. Because sometimes I have time, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't want to Bigfoot other people. I just don't want to do that. But so we are finished Expedition 33. It was a fantastic game. I recommend it to everybody. They don't have a new game plus yet, but I wouldn't be surprised in future updates because they made a statement yesterday. They are going to be adding more content. So I wouldn't be surprised if they would be adding a new game plus in the future. It would only make sense considering all the work you put into with points and Pictos and why have a level 99 trophy if they're not going to let you keep it in a new game plus. Anyway, so I recommend Expedition 33. I'm going to get that soundtrack. That soundtrack is insanely good. Fantastic soundtrack. Aside from that, which means gaming-wise for regular gaming streams, we're moving on to Lunar Remastered Collection. I did my warm-up for last night. I had to do my warm-up for yesterday for the main game because I have a little thing that I do. Whenever I start a playthrough for any Lunar game, whether it's the originals or the remakes, and now this one, the remastered of the remakes. I have a tradition. I must be super leveled up for the White Dragon Cavern. So last night, after relaxing for a bit and then firing it up, booting up, I put on a movie to keep me company, and I just did some grinding for a couple of hours, and I'm already level 15. So what we will do is, and this is how I do it every time. I start the game, go through the introductory stuff, and then I load up the save file with the level 15 on it. That's what I do. That's what I do. And then we go from there, and it's a nice big cushion for the first part of the game. I don't have to worry about anything. And I have so much money. I have so much silver right now. It's so good. I'm rich. I'm rich, biatch. So I don't know when we're going to play it. I wasn't planning on doing a gaming stream tonight. I wasn't planning, and I kind of lately take Wednesdays off in terms of just not doing anything at night since I seem to stream all the time. But I could be convinced with super chats to play some Lunar tonight, despite my usual taking the night off. Other than that, we might not get to it for a few days, because tomorrow night, as Kel referenced, tomorrow night, Alf and I are doing some Space Marine 2, because we can't play it this weekend. No co-op this weekend, because this weekend is Among Us on Saturday night, where we will be doing all kinds of evil things to one another. And then let's see. No gaming. That's the gaming for the next several days. I mean, I might try to fit one in on Sunday before Wormhole Watch. I don't know, maybe if I'm feeling up to it. All I know is that I fired it up. The game really is beautiful, and thank Alfina, I managed to. I realized that there were sections, even though they're not visible. There were sections to the settings. I was able to turn off the subtitles. Thank God, that would have been annoying. It would have ruined it all. And the audio settings were a little off too. So I managed to adjust the audio and turn off the subtitles. You have no idea how pleased I am. I was going to love this no matter what, but I was going to be so annoyed if subtitles were going to get in the way of my glorious, beautiful, lovely, forever close to my heart Lunar. It was going to be so annoying. But no, I got to turn off subtitles, so I am a happy little Adam. Okay, so what are we doing today, though? What are we doing today? So, like I said, I got a segment. I think some of you will appreciate it. Some of you might not. It's a not normie friendly take. We got articles, and right now, as I said, Kel has spent $20 on Stream Elements for our Warhammer Wednesday video. And yes, Kratos, if you're catching up, because I don't see you yet, so I know you catch up and you fast forward. I'm about to secure the SpongeBob episode. And I see what it is. Episodes of SpongeBob, like cartoons like that, are broken up into segments of smaller episodic moments. Tomorrow, you guys will get my live stream review of SpongeBob SquarePants Season 1, Episode 1, Help Wanted, and the other 2 segments on there. So you will be getting that because you made me do it. Kratos specifically made me do it. So that's tomorrow, guys. As for today, it looks like we're gonna have some fun. I think I'm gonna at least have some fun. I'm excited. I love Warhammer Wednesdays. I love it. I love real lore. I love actually enjoying something that I'm gonna watch. All right. So hail howdy to the chat. How you guys doing? Hail the goddess. Hail good sir Algrim the Strong. They're talking hockey, which they know I don't care about. Hail Kel. Hail Static. It's not Gaily. Not Gaily. It's manly. We do manly things here. Anyway, hail and how to everybody else just checking it out, sitting there watching in the chat. Hope you're having a good time. Hit that like button, guys. And also, just as a friendly reminder, because it's through you that the things happen, guys, we are still just seven subs away from 4,000. Our goal this month was 4,000. I thought we would. I honestly thought we were going to hit already. We got 12 days left. 7 subs in 12 days. Real subs. No alt accounts. I want real subs. Real subs. People coming here to join the fun. Have a good time. 4,000. We could get there. I know we can get there. 4,000 subs. I feel it in my little nerd bones. I feel it. We can get there. Just 4,000. And we'll see if we can take the channel to the next level, crossing 4,000 subscribers. All right, so we're going to look at articles now as usual. Let's get right in. I have nothing else to say. You guys seem to be calming down in the chat. You don't seem to want to yell at me about things. So, Diamond, let's do a quick refresh on all the pages. Make sure they are up to date. That one updates automatically, and that one's fine. And that one's probably fine as well. Okay, there we go. All right, so as usual, we start with a variety. Oh, and I got, of course, this is how the game works, guys. This is how the game works. And let me adjust it, hey, quick, with today's total, with today's tip. There we go. So here's how the game works. $5 to order an Adam rant on anything within reason. Within reason. We try not to get political around here. $10 to ask me a question, to discuss any pop culture topic, and it's an open discussion. I talk with you guys. We could go down a rabbit hole. Could be fun. $15 to choose any of the articles that I will present to you, or one you may be sitting on, you want me to go over. I will give you a hot take on it. $20 to make me watch a video. $30 to have me review something, whether it be an episode of television or a movie, live on stream. But it is a 1 to 2 day wait, because it is an investment, as we're seeing today. Got to give me a chance to get my hands on it. Got to give me a chance to watch it and get my opinions ready on it. I have the hiccups. Nothing to do about that. I talk too quickly and I get the hiccups. It's just the me that I am. So there you go. Them's the rules of the game. And today, every day for the rest of the month and a little bit in July, our current donation tier, the Week of Doom, we're currently at $167. At $500, you guys will basically order a live stream during the Week of Doom where we will play tabletop, but it's Disney Star Wars tabletop. Then at $600, you can choose an NPC for me to play in the game from that era. Now, since I'm running the game, that means I'll play somebody in there, but it'll be, how it is, NPC. We'll do the best we can. At $700, I will control. Oh, I'm sorry, $600 you choose the era. $700 I choose an NPC from that era. $800 we put in Baby Yoda Grogu. We put him in there, even if it's the wrong era, just because F Disney Star Wars. And then at $1,000, you guys. Oh no, sorry, $900. I'm getting it wrong. $900. We'll do a forced IP crossover with other Disney IPs because they all say it's in the same universe, so why not? Let's fuck around and make it look stupid. And then at $1,000, you will choose the characters for the players in that game, i.e. their classes, their characters, this and that. You guys, the chat, will put the characters together for everybody. A selection that'll be there for whoever's showing up for that. So there's our donation tier. We're up to $167 on that. And all tips, super chats, membership donations on this show, on Roundtable, on Mellow Mondays, and gaming streams all go towards this kitty right now. Okay, so with that said, let's check out the articles for the day. We start with Variety, as always. Let's see what retardation the world is up to. Excuse me. Disney plans virtual concession stand storefronts for Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN streamers. What? I'm sorry. Virtual concession stand. Does this mean you're going to order it before you get there? I hate making everything so digital and virtual. I really do. Whatever happened to getting off your lazy ass and going there? I don't know. The Challenge 41 cast includes a boxer, Big Brother, more reality crap. Running point star Brenda Song on her real career goal. All I want is to be on SportsCenter. Brenda Song is still hot. Isn't she married to Macaulay Culkin? Isn't she married to Macaulay Culkin? If so, good job, Macaulay, dude. She's still smoking hot. Yeah, there are virtual lines. And it's like, I'm going to queue up and I'm not even there. I hate this virtual shit today. It's for lazy people. Shrinking Season 3. Jason Segel confirms Kobe Smolder's return. Teases Jeff Daniels' appearance as Jimmy's dad. I don't watch that show. I don't care. But Kobe Smulders is still hot. So I'm okay with that. Severance standout Britt Lauer on unleashing a new heli in season 2. I don't watch that show, so I don't care. How American Primeval music editors created tense anxiety with walling, low, dangerous sounds. That is not things I can understand. My talents do not align with musical engineering. Bad Bunny's residency set to generate $200 million for Puerto Rico. Manager Noah, is they're a band. So, somebody help me out here. They're a band. Somebody feed Phil star Phil Rosenthal on the perils of filming a food show. If you saw my closer levels right now. Listen. Don't abuse your body in any way, shape, or form. This is why, despite the fact that we give Dermy so much shit, this is why we told him, don't eat the whole cake on stream. Don't do it. Don't do it. There's other ways to abuse yourself while not putting yourself in danger like that. So don't. It's one thing to go around the world and check out food and check out small restaurants, stuff like that. But don't treat your body well, man. Treat your body well. TV Academy sticks up for diversity, equity, and inclusion, even as some major media companies take pathetic spineless route. Wow. So they're still going. This shows you nothing changes. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. They are still going to push DEI to the day it dies. They're going to keep going, which is why we don't watch any of this shit, and which is why award shows are worthless. Yeah, Dermy should not do that. Don't eat a cake on stream. Don't eat a whole pie on stream. It's one thing to like eat a bunch of pizza. That's not going to kill you. But eating a whole cake. Man. Ariana Maddox on the character she creates for Love Island USA. A power of female rage and saying goodbye to Vanderpump Rules. More reality bullshit. Yeah, that's the point. I mean, well, yeah, that's the point. I mean, when I make pizza, there's a little sugar in there because it is part of the. It's I put a little sugar in my cheese mix, a little bit. Give that extra sweet and savory, parallel. But I'm not talking like a cup of sugar. It's just like maybe eighth of a cup, or a quarter of a quarter. So a little bit, but that's we're talking like probably half a pound to 3/4 of a pound of cheese. So it's spread out through the whole thing. No, pineapple's disgusting. Pineapple is not the kind of sweet you want in that. That's a different kind of sweet and savory. No. I will fight on that one. After Elon posts drug test showing negative results, New York Times accuses mogul of continuing to lash out because he doesn't like our reporting. Nobody likes your reporting because you push fake news and you push false narratives and you change it to fit what you want to stir shit up. Fuck you, gray lady. Sex sells. Yes, it does. How OnlyFans turned fetish-friendly celebs and porn stars into multi-billion-dollar juggernaut that rivals legacy studios. Listen. I ain't paying for that shit. But if I find it in the wild and the chick is hot, sure, it's great. But I will never understand people actually paying for OnlyFans. Sometimes is it hard? Can you not find it? Yeah. Sometimes those simps hold that shit on tight and they don't let it out in the wild. But a lot of times things get out. So you don't need to pay for it. You could find it, satisfy yourself, and move on with your day. David Oyelowo, I can't pronounce his name, on why he made it a priority to shoot government cheese in Los Angeles. Because you are virtue signaling, perhaps? F1 stars Brad Pitt and Damson Idris drove 6,000 miles in real race cars. It was the most exhilarating feeling in the world. Good for you. And that's rich people privilege right there. That's rich people privilege for your movie. My job is to effing sing. Bad more okay, I don't know who these guys are. I don't care. I don't care about anybody in the music industry. I don't. To me, they're all hacks and untalented. They honestly are. Tribeca Studios and OpenAI to establish AI integrated short film program. It's a tool. Catherine Bigelow's A House of Dynamite sets fall release on Netflix and theaters. And in theaters. Sure. I don't know what that is. House of Dynamite. I need to be informed. Jeff Bezos and his girlfriend, upcoming Venice. Oh, they're getting married? Oh, that thing's probably got a 10-page long prenup after the last one. Well, he's paid for all her plastic surgery, so you might as well lock it down, I guess. I don't really see it. I'm not against certain level of plastic surgery, especially if you're getting older and this and that, just to keep it tight, not to change your appearance completely to make it look different. I'm not against it. I'm also, I'm a fan of boobs. I like boobs. Some surgeons are geniuses, but she doesn't do it for me at all. Shouldn't do it for me at all. How PG became Hollywood's hottest rating. Oh, shut up. Netflix renews Tom Segura's Bad Thoughts for season 2. I don't know what that is. Megyn Kelly expands digital network with Emily Jasinski after party aimed at fans of politics comedy. All right. I haven't really watched Megyn Kelly in years, so sure. Mark Ruffalo slams grifter Trump and says billionaires are the problem, not immigrants. They're stealing you blind while immigrants add to the economy. Says the millionaire. Says the millionaire who probably hasn't done anything for himself up until now. I mean, up ever. Sorry, I said until now because I thought Kratos come and say that. That's why I said up until now. Who has never done anything for himself in years. So Ruffalo could shut the fuck up. All right, let's go a little more back in time here since it's only 3 hours ago. We like to open to at least 6 hours. NBC plans Today Fan Festival with events scheduled for fall. I've never understood daytime television obsessions. Never. Reese Witherspoon unveils Hello Sunshine sister label Sunny for Gen Z at Cannes Lions. BBC confirms appointment of Kate Phillips as new content chief. Good luck, lady. You're about to preside over the end of the BBC. Good luck. And I bet one of her first one of her first orders of business, canceling Doctor Who. Because nobody watched it and you won't find investment for it for more seasons. And you don't even have another real doctor because Billy Piper shouldn't be the doctor. In fact, nobody since Peter Capaldi should have been the doctor. BTS Eyes March 2026 comeback. That's the Korean K-pop band, if I'm correct about that. What else we got? Anything else? Supernatural Horror: The Sacrifice featuring all right, this is 13 hours. Okay, we're beyond anything here. All right, fine. Okay, moving on. Let's go to the Hollywood Reporter. Jonathan Bailey is breaking Hollywood's rules and winning. I don't know who this is. Oh, he's from Bridgerton. Internet anointed, openly gay Bridgerton and Wicked breakout. And he's going to be in Jurassic World Rebirth. It's a good thing there are dinosaurs in that movie because all people care about in those movies are the dinosaurs. Nobody cares about the humans. If there were not dinosaurs in that movie, this would probably tank that movie a little bit. I don't know who this is. I don't care about him, and I don't care that you're openly gay. Go fuck who you want to fuck. I don't give a fuck. What else we got? Hollywood Reporter critic picks the 10 best TV shows of 2025 so far. Well, that's probably painful. Because honestly, the things people like, I generally don't like. I mean, even within our sphere. And the things the normies like are probably usually shit. So, Jeremy Allen White rocks out in trailer for Bruce Springsteen biopic Deliver Me From Nowhere. The Reese Witherspoon news already saw. Film. Francis Ford Coppola is taking Megalopolis on tour with screenings and Q&As about the future. Listen, Coppola could do what he wants. No one cares. This weekend, it'll be a fight between How to Train Your Dragon live action 20 years later and Elio. Yes, Elio, set to be probably the biggest Pixar bomb of all time. Good job, Disney. All your money you're made about to vanish. Because apparently Elio was very expensive. Very expensive. So that Lilo and Stitch money, it's already going to evaporate into thin air. What? No, I haven't. I have not. I've been curating my timeline recently on X with that not interested option, and it's been slimming down a few of the things I get, which is kind of nice. I'm not seeing things that are annoying me so much past few days. Let's check TV here. Oops. Phineas and Ferb creator shows lasting footprint. I hate Phineas and Ferb. Phineas and Ferb was shit. That was a garbage show. That was an example of, compared to old kids programming and that time current day kids programming, and how they dumbed it down and made it stupid as shit. They don't respect kids anymore with their programming. They just don't. None of this is interesting. Let's check IGN. Doing the refresh real quick. Marvel reveals classic Fantastic Four villain via Little Caesars Pizza commercial. We talked about that yesterday. If it's in the movie, it's retarded. If it turns out it's a commercial, then if it looks stupid, fine, we'll ignore it. But that's in the movie. As I talked about that yesterday, I didn't know it was from a movie from a commercial at the time. But if that's a commercial, then we'll let it slide. It's just retarded and dumb. But if that's in the movie, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. Turns out Elden Ring and Night Rain's revive bars have some hidden mechanics that make them increasingly more difficult to whittle down. Okay, I don't play the game, so I don't know. Silent Hill sequel film Return to Silent Hill finally gets a release date. I always heard the Silent Hill movie was bad. I've always heard that. Bleak Haven, a first-person survival horror game, announced for PC. Okay. A bummer we weren't invited, says Alien Ant Farm after being cut from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3-4 soundtrack. I feel like our song was really good. They're still a band. They're still together. Good for them. Elden Ring Night Rain patch 1.01.3 adds a little bit of madness, but players are really happy about the one bug fix. Sure. Oh, we've got a tease. This is my segment in a moment. Dude Messiah confirms 2 characters from the books are in the film, and they've been cast. Yes, that I will be talking about this in a few minutes. And F this movie. F everything Denis Villeneuve and his Dune adaptations. So we talk about that in a few minutes. Super Mario Odyssey, Pauline is your new sidekick in Donkey Kong Bonanza, and DK can now transform into a zebra or flying ostrich. Yeah, so apparently there was a Nintendo Direct this morning for Donkey Kong Bonanza. I'm going to be honest. I don't give a fuck. And only a Nintendrone cares about this. Nobody else cares about this. Let's be honest. Show me anybody outside of simping for Nintendo that cares about this Direct this morning. Show me. I guarantee you can't. This is not a game breaker. This is not a needle mover. And would this have been better if they had saved it if they had saved the launch to inclusive release? I think so. I think that any release, the broader library you have it released, the better the release will be. It goes to what we've been talking about. If they had made a few changes, like made Z to A switch to exclusive, a couple other things switch to exclusives, had a couple other things ready to go, the launch would have been even bigger. because you would have broadened out your audience, expanded the audience, expanded the initial launch numbers. It's been a success, but could have been a bigger success. Spider-Man the Animated Series gets a comic book sequel. Yeah, they're calling it Spider-Man 94 to conclude the original TV series. Essentially, obviously kind of showing that they're probably not going to do an animated one like X-Men 97. Probably not going to do that. Predator Badlands poster breaks cover, reveals first proper look at new Predator's armor and mask, and also maybe a big spoiler. Don't care. Don't care. Pokemon Go details summer city events featuring a big red truck. It's driving around Europe. Well, I guess that's one more thing for Cloud to bitch about when it comes to Pokemon Go. Why is it in Europe and not America? I don't know. James Gunn clarifies Disney killed Marvel comment. They were screwed by the situation they had no control over. I don't want to talk James Gunn today. I really don't. I really don't want to talk. I don't want to talk James Gunn today. GameStop is really leaning into the Switch 2 launch day stapler snafu. Well, you better. As long as you get people your money back, as long as you replace people's damaged items, damaged switches, then everything's fine. Ironheart episode guide suggests when fan favorite Marvel favorite. Why are you spelling an OU, you pompous piece of shit? Marvel villain will finally debut with Borat actor Sacha Baron Cohen expected to appear. It still makes no goddamn sense that Mephisto is going to be appearing for the first time in the MCU in Ironheart, and nobody's going to watch it, except maybe Static. I think out of our group, Static's the only one who might look forward to reviewing this in any way, shape, or form. I am. You guys would have to make me watch this shit. I don't do MCU anymore. Only MCU thing I will do this year left will be Fantastic Four Baby Steps, and that's about as much gas I have left in the tank, because that's a bigger deal. Police investigate 1.4 million Switch 2 truck heist as GameStop stock swiped. Yeah, I heard about that. I am not a boomer today. I haven't screwed up yet. Okay, the director for Elden Ring movie is really, really into Elden Ring video game. Good. There's still no real story to Elden Ring. I don't know. I mean, it's a very thin story, which shows you that Germ is like tokening his time spent on that. Maker of the new Terminator 2 video game tracked down actor who played Future John Connor back in 91 sequel to include his likeness. Hey, that's kind of cool. Elden Ring Night Raid player discovers there's a maximum number of relics you can hold. Sure. And now we're into yesterday. We're into yesterday. This Warner Brothers restructuring games to focus on Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC franchises. That's fascinating when you think about it. And here's the problem with that. There's definitely a market for Harry Potter games. Mortal Kombat, they have a lot of work to bring everybody back because the Mortal Kombat MK1 was resoundingly panned. Nobody was really happy with that. And from all levels, from story to gameplay. We can understand making DC games. Just why don't you actually make one and put it out instead of canceling them all? But what I don't understand of that is Game of Thrones. I'm sorry. Is there a demand for Game of Thrones video games that I have missed? Is there? That just seems really not understanding your gaming market. Now, if you said Lord of the Rings games, then I could say, sure. People always want Lord of the Rings content. Although, look at the last round they made with Gollum. That was dog shit. But I don't think Game of Thrones games are in hot demand. I really don't. And that's it for IGN. Let's check. What is Kotaku? Kotaku. Nintendo doesn't worry about Donkey Kong lore, and neither should you. Yeah, nobody cares about Donkey Kong lore because nobody really cares about Donkey Kong. Unless you're a full-on Nintendo drone, like, oh, yay, Bonanza, yay! One of our most exciting games right now is a hero shooter or a fighting game, whatever. Again, Bonanza. Only Nintendo drones care. 4 essential tips to survive the hiss in FBC Firebreak. I don't know what that is. We talked about that yesterday, the Abyss thing. That was ridiculous. Again, Donkey Kong Bonanza. Don't give a fuck. Mario Kart World is redemption for one of the 80s most underrated racing games. Really? Digimon is quietly eating Pokemon's lunch, and more people should know. Yeah, I saw this yesterday. Not any articles, but I saw it when I was scanning upcoming RPGs. I was never really into Digimon gaming. I watched a lot of the cartoons, a lot of the anime, and they were okay. And a couple of them did influence me creatively here and there. I'll admit that, but never into the Digimon gaming. Don't care about Bonanza. Game Pass is getting 3 Warcrafts, a Call of Duty, and more this month. Great for gamers, bad for business. After what EA did to BioWare, the Battlefield X Mass Effect crossover gives me the ick. What? Dude. That's retarded. Oh no, F that, man. Hades 2 gets longest patch note ever in last major update before 1.0 launch. Final arrives later this year. All right, and we're into yesterday's news now. Okay, Niche Gamer. Patapon 1-2 replay gets you over Chiller. Again, Bonanza. Talked about that. Pokemon TCG, Pocket X-Pack, Eevee Grove launches this month. Pokemon will make money on everything. It just will. Dark fantasy action game Sarvida announced. Ooh, let's check that out. Action battle game Mech vs. Aliens unavailable. Two Heart remake announces playable demo. Chronos, the new Dawn physical edition for PS5 announced. I don't know what that is. House of the Dead 2. I didn't play the first one. Don't care. Marathon story we know about. Xbox has confirmed a multi-year partnership with AMD. They will be putting out a console. That's actually pretty big news. That was actually pretty big news. So the fact that Xbox will participate at least in one more generation of consoles, confirmed. They're going to. Now, whether or not anybody gives a damn, that will remain to be seen. I don't think people care about an Xbox console anymore. I think they are now relegated to the distant third. Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon delayed to 2026 at Switch version. I don't know if that's mainline or a side story. I'd have to check with some of my. I mean, I play that franchise. And I what I like to do with that franchise is wait till all the chapters are out for a segment of the story, because they're only, when they finished Trails of Cold Steel a couple years ago, the developers said they're only halfway through the entire story, so there's still half a story to go. Therefore, I want to wait till the next arc is done, and then buy it and play it all at once. That's how I like to play these games. So that'll be interesting to see. So there we go. That's that. No, I haven't seen the new DK trailer, because 1, I hate Donkey Kong, and 2, I really do think it's Nintendo only. You're the first person I've ever heard say that. I don't know if gamers are into Game of Thrones. I really don't. Prove me wrong. I'll be proven wrong. If I'm proven wrong. I just don't think. I don't think Game of Thrones works as a gaming world. I just don't. Arnold shocks the view by defending immigration law and calling for immigrant responsibility. He flip-flops on so much shit. I don't care what Arnold says. Rachel Zegler West End debut in Evita sparks backlash after most iconic song performed outdoors away from paying customers. Wow, Rachel Zegler disrespects fans again in some way, shape, or form. Why am I not surprised that this idiot goes along with something that's probably more about her than about appeasing or pleasing the paying customer? Jeez, and I bet it was garbage, because she's garbage. Yeah, I saw this dude who's a live action Lilo Stitch died. Sucks for him. Then again, he looked really fat. He shouldn't have eaten the whole cake on stream. Too soon? Maybe. I don't know. This is from yesterday. We covered this stuff yesterday, Ironheart stuff. And that's late stuff. Trump at the settlement with with CBS. There we go. Okay, so that's it for articles. That be it for the articles. Go ahead, think about them if there's one you want me to take a shot at. So while you guys think about that, I will do my segment. Let me check Stream Elements real quick. Okay, we still just got our Warhammer Wednesday video. All right, so let me actually blow my nose real quick, and then we will talk the Dune news. Right. So, if you are familiar with this channel, you know that I am a fan of Dune. I'm a book fan of Dune. I love the books. I love the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries adaptations of the first 3 books. They are as close to book accurate as we've ever gotten. I thought the cast were great. I thought they spent time on it. They made it work. They took their time, and it was fun, engaging, and it helps the passion of that stuff. Denis Villeneuve, I'm going to say his name right, not joke about it for a second here, decided to make Dune, but he split it into 2 movies, and effectively and some people don't understand that that's still one book. Denis Villeneuve's Dune 1 and Dune 2, it's still one book, one story. He was just retarded and split it. Now, splitting it is a good idea because Dune is such a large, encompassing story that you need time to do it. That's why the miniseries works so well. They took the time. It's basically 6.5, 7 hours of the story presented on screen over 3 episodes, 2-hour plus episodes. I have it all DVD. It's right over here. I have it. And I have the director's cut, so there's extra stuff in there, which makes it even better. So Denis Villeneuve already screwed up Dune. He already screwed it up when he decided to split it and at the same time make changes. When he decided to make changes, key changes that are problems. 1, he didn't properly follow the timeline of the story. 2, he screwed up Paul and Chaney's love story by giving Zendaya's Chaney feminist agency. 2, he screwed up Paul's story by leaving out a lot of key elements, a lot of stuff. I mean, in this, there no Leto the second or the first Leto the second. They skipped that part. They didn't have a kid. That's kind of important. Kind of important. Other major problems. They screwed up Jessica completely. He screwed up Jessica's character completely. Didn't even properly introduce Alia. They had her be still unborn, preborn unborn inside Jessica, whispering her in her ear, and we get a shot of Anna Taylor-Joy as the future adult version of Alia, where Alia, yes, her adult version really is only 16 in the stories, but later on, but by the time you get to Children of Dune, she's in her 20s, 30s, but you know what I'm saying. Preborn, Alia being present is important because they have a major problem now. And spoilers for Dune right here, right now. At the conclusion of Dune, before Paul attacks Arrakeen, the Harkonnens had, thank you, in the middle of this. Thank you. In the middle of my backswing. Hold on one second. Middle of my backswing. Thank you. Stream elements, StreamYards. Okay. As I was saying, towards the end of Dune. Oh, really? Come on. God damn it. I wish I knew why I did this suddenly. 4 years of using this shit, and this is the first time it's doing this these past couple of months. Don't get it. As I was saying. Ah! Oh, come on! I'm trying to work here, damn it! Motherfucker! All right. Give me a second. I gotta freaking unplug it, plug it back in, see if that fixes it. It's retarded. Try to do a segment here. Stupid thing. God damn it. Oh, come on. All right. Now I gotta go to the rat's nest, the fucking rat's nest Viper cable behind the computer and find out where it's attached to. Because I think I found it. Is this it? No, is this it? How did it get wrapped up in all this shit? All right. You know what? I think I need to plug this back into the main computer to use. Give me a second. Oh, reboots. All right. Okay. As I was trying to say, towards the end of Dune, when the Harkonnens find out where Paul is keeping members of his family, they do an attack. And in that attack, they kill his son Leto II, and they kidnap Alia. And they bring Alia to the Baron, who's holding her hostage and using her as a game piece to try and convince the Emperor that he's in control of stuff. Like, look, I have Muad'Dib's sister. But that's when Alia reveals that that Muad'Dib is Paul Atreides and that she's Alia Atreides and that he's coming for her. And of course, Paul is in psychic communication with Alia to set the stage. Alia has set the table. Let's go. And it's also massively important because Alia kills the Baron. Not Paul, like in Denny's freaking movie, but Alia, because that has to set the stage for the fact that Alia will become an abomination possessed by the ghost of her grandfather, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. That is a massively important thing that Denny is left out. And because he didn't address it in the movie, it can't happen, at least not without making any sense in now what is Dune Messiah. And I say Dune Messiah because it's Dune Messiah in name only. We have evidence now, it had been rumored, but now it is true, that Denis Villeneuve is essentially merging Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. Now, yes, Adam, you the miniseries you like so much, they did that too. They called the whole thing Children of Dune. Yes, but you know what they did? They devoted an entire 2-hour episode to Messiah and the remaining 6 hours to Children of Dune. So Messiah got to stand alone in the miniseries, which I have, again, right there. But Denis Villeneuve is going to try and do all of this in one movie. And we have confirmation he's going to do that because we have casting news. Leto and Ganima have been cast. Now, we've got massive nepotism, apparently right here, Leto II, who is going to be a massively important character, God Emperor of Dune, Nepo baby, Jason Momoa's son. Jason Momoa's son, who's returning as Duncan Idaho, who he has to return as Duncan Idaho because Duncan Idaho, massively important. Jason Momoa's son is going to be Leto II. And this is the chick they got for Ganima. So fine, she's clearly of mixed race because Zendaya is black and Timothy Chalamet is white. So yeah, fine. You're putting in mixed people there. I'm not even going to address that. I've already said in the past, making sure that the Fremen were all brown or very brown. I think that was retarded. That was dumb. But the point is this: they're putting in Leto and Ganima and calling the movie Messiah. That means, first of all, remember at the end of the last movie, Zendaya's Cheney with her angry girl boss face, was running off into the desert, leaving Paul, as opposed to the actual story lore of Paul and Cheney being together, her supporting him no matter what. No, she's run away. So you're going to tell me you're going to do the time skip 10 years later. There's a 10-year time skip between the end of Dune and Messiah, where they're just going to be magically back together. And during that time, they reconciled, and we're going to deal with the fact that Irulan was poisoning Cheney, keeping her from getting pregnant and that kind of stuff, and the spice remedy to get her pregnant and accelerate pregnancy. You think he's just going to throw all that in there and pretend like Cheney didn't run away like a dumb bitch at the end of the last movie? We're just going to do that? Is that what we're going to do? Because that's what he has to do. He has to ignore his own movie to try and set it up. He has to somehow introduce Alia, who's had no real setup. You've got to somehow, if you're doing Messiah and children are doing the one thing, you have to somehow fix it that you didn't have Alia kill the Baron, and therefore you're losing the complete dynamic of him possessing her. Their dynamic is she killed him and he wants revenge. That's the dynamic. But you don't have it. So this whole movie is going to be a disaster. And if you're a normie and you like the first two, know that you liked a bastardized version filled with agenda-driven politics shoved in there and a shortchanged story. Denis Villeneuve did not give you Dune. He gave you Flashbang and Hans Zimmer's soundtrack. That's all he gave you. He didn't give you Dune. And now he's going to give you an even more bastardized version with a compact Messiah and an accelerator, and I don't know what he's going to do with children. I don't know. Now, and here's the thing. Messiah is not the most exciting story in the world. It's essentially Godfather shit. That's what Messiah is. Messiah is the Godfather. It's not exciting unless you're into that kind of shit, which I am. I find it thrilling. But the movie would essentially be boring, so that's his choice, to combine it with children. So this has disaster written all over it. And if whatever comes out will not be Dune. It already wasn't Dune before. Now it's really not going to be Dune. And I don't know how they go forward. Good Lord. I hate Denis Villeneuve's Dune. I hate all of this. I hate it all. It's garbage. If you like it, great. But know that you like garbage. That's simple. All right. Finally finished because my camera decided to work again. Ugh. How do you, I know how some of you feel about the Dune thing. I know how some of you feel about it, that you agree with me. And I know a lot of people like it, but it's not Dune. It isn't Dune. Not even remotely. Timothy Chalamet is a terrible Paul Muad'Dib Atreides. Zendaya was a terrible Cheney. She cannot act, and she's not hot. And you wasted everything in there. You didn't even touch on all the proper storylines, and it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck. I am not excited for that. I'm not excited. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It makes me angry. All I would want nothing more than great Dune. Nothing more than that. Because they were never going to continue the miniseries. It was done. They were never going to go forward with the rest of the story. So I always wanted more. And this is what I get. Denis Villeneuve, a guy who cares more about another director who cares about his vision of shit. I mean, let's be honest. The reason people like Dune the most, these two movies, is because Hans Zimmer's soundtrack makes it feel great. That's it. Yeah, man. I got the sci-fi miniseries, both of them, and I got my books. And here's the thing. Dune's got some good mojo going on right now with the MMO. With the new MMO out. It's got some good mojo going on. So I don't know. I hate it. We can't have nice things. Real fans don't get nice things. We don't. We get normified shit. But here's the thing. Here's something that I don't. Here's something that bugs me. We've had. Is it raining? Holy shit! That's all I can hear. That you can't hear that rain. I could hear it through my headphones. Wow, it's raining hard out there. That's good. But here's the thing I don't get. Here's the thing they don't get. Normies will flock to something if it's true to the source material, because the nerds will pave the way. The fans will pave the way. You don't have here's this false idea that things need to be normified. Things do not entertainment doesn't need to be normified. Entertainment will do better if you make it for the fans, who will then bridge the gap between the content and the normies. And the normies will come if it's good. The normies will always show up if it's good. You don't need to dumb it down for normies, because you know what? Normies can be turned into hardcore fans if they like something. If they like it, they'll want to learn more. They'll want to know more. So that's a lesson that needs to be learned. Normification for entertainment doesn't need to happen. Normies always show up if it's good, and they'll walk away if it's bad. It's that simple. All right, let me check Stream Elements. All right, so all we got today so far seems to be Warhammer Wednesday. So let's get on with Warhammer Wednesdays. Yes, I'm excited. I want to learn more about the founding chapters. And I saw you say, Kel, it's not all of them, but it's at least enough. It'll probably be enough to help me, because I want to please everybody when they ask me, what's your favorite Space Marine chapter? And I want to say, this is my favorite. I want to be able to say that, but I don't want to lie. I want to know. And I don't purposefully go out there and watch anything, because that'll ruin the dynamic we have going on here. And I like this dynamic. One, I get paid. But two, we share it together and we get to talk about it. And I get to ask questions, and you guys who have the knowledge get to answer it. So let's go into it. Let's do this. So what we got here is from More Lore. This was from a year ago, 3.3 million views. Clearly, it's gotten its money's worth. It's an evergreen content. If you like More Lore, go subscribe to them if you enjoy this one. And we will now watch every single Warhammer Space Marine Legion explained. Our first dip. I mean, we've heard a lot about this stuff with the Horus Heresy and all that other things. We've gotten a taste of all these legions, all the chapters, but not enough specificity. And I'm sure we can do Primarch stuff. And I did see a video come across my feed, because we watch stuff. Was the Emperor a bad dad? That sounds like it could be funny. A hot take. I feel like he's a bad dad. I feel like the Emperor is a bad dad. I feel like he is, just because he did some stupid, like one we watched last week with that particular Primarch who he pulled out of that basically desperate situation, and then he killed all his own dudes. That was a bad dad move. Yeah. I can see that. All right, let's go. Here we go. More lore. In a basement on Terra. All right, hold on. Let's go back half a break here. Let's see if we can get a shot of all of these guys here. Now, of course, these are all of them. Some of them do fall to chaos. I understand that. Some of them do fall to chaos. We've got the Dark Angels, the Emperor's Children, the Iron Warriors, the White Scars, the Space Wolves, the Imperial Fist, the Night Lords, the Blood Angels, the Iron Hands, the World Eaters, who we learned about last week. The Ultramarines, who we're playing as a Space Marine 2. Death Guard, who we learned a little bit about in Space Marine 2. The Thousand Sons, who I've been told people love. Sons of Horus, Word Bearers. And I didn't catch that last one there. Let's go back because he clipped away too soon. The Salamanders, Kel's favorite, right, Kel? That's your favorite. And Raven Guard and Alpha Legion. Okay, so these are the Space Marines. These are the Space Marines. Okay. There, see, Third Eye mentioned it. See, that's pre-heresy. See, they turned. Okay, let's keep going. I believe. No audio. What the hell? I selected the right thing. What? That's retarded. I selected the right one this time. I selected it. Okay. Starting again. I selected the right one. Something fucked up. I selected the right one. I swear I did. Okay, we're starting again. I got too excited.
Decides it's time to bring humanity back into the...
All right, okay.
One day, a god decides it's time to bring humanity back into the stars and creates giant superhuman soldiers in a basement on Terra that would be known as Space Marines. The 20 legions of these super soldiers will struggle with their identities, their purpose, their faith, and ultimately each other. And each of these legions is unique in ways you wouldn't believe. So, welcome to our breakdown of the 20 legions of the Adeptus Astartes from Warhammer 40k. We might as well start at number 1. The first Legion Astartes is also coincidentally one of the most celebrated despite their habit of secrecy, often tasked with some of the most important and high-profile...
I like the color scheme. Color scheme means a lot to me. I like the black and the gold. I've actually got... I went back for Space Marine 2 when we were done last week. I've gone back. I fine-tuned my current allowable gear customization. I'm pretty happy with it. A little black and gold going on.
File missions, the Dark Angels enjoyed much of the spotlight during the Great Crusade. Their first recorded deployment was the defense of the Imperial Palace during the Palace coup attempt during the Unification Wars. Many of the
They're a traitor legion? Aw.
Legionnaires of what would eventually become the Dark Angels were used to experiment fighting styles and organizational techniques to be used in the other legions. This led to an air of superiority that hung over the first in every encounter with their fellow legions, leading to the unofficial nickname, the Uncrowned Princes. Many First Legion warriors started taking names of epic heroes from Terran myth as they slowly started believing their own hype. However, this led them to start
They drank their own Kool-Aid.
believing that there was nothing they could learn from the rest of the Imperium or even their brother Space Marines. And so, by the time their Primarch Lionel Johnson was found, the first was a legion.
That's something that I don't quite understand, and someone's gonna have to explain it to me, whether in chat or in a video. They keep talking about the Primarchs being found. I'm not sure how they got lost in the first place. So I'm gonna need an explanation on that when it keeps happening. How the Primarchs weren't there and then were found, and we've seen some disastrous findings of Primarchs and this and that. So I'm gonna need some explanations on that, because that's not entirely clear to me. Because remember, I'm not doing further research myself. I'm leaving it to our shared experience of learning lore together in some cases and teaching me things. So,
of secretive and superior traditionalists ruled by a circle of pseudo...
Is that the simple explanation, Third Eye? That mom just sent him across the galaxy to keep them dad from fighting? Is that it? Okay. That's a simplified explanation. I'll take it.
nobility called hosts. Oddly, the prideful leaders of the Legion did not at first enjoy the presence of their Primarch like other legions did, and it took quite a few duels for the Lion to beat some sense into this group of Astartes. And unfortunately, this feeling of bitterness.
Okay, Kel's adding to that. So some were stolen and sent away. Okay. Which means, of course, now that I understand. If it's getting sent through the warp, that means time is not a factor because their time doesn't exist in the warp. So they could be thrown into the warp and spit out anywhere across time and space. So that part I understand. That I understand. Let's go back a second. I missed a little bit because we were talking. Let's go back to there here.
Led them to start believing that there was nothing they could learn from the rest of the Imperium or even their brother Space Marines. And so, by the time their Primarch Lionel Johnson was found, the first was a legion of secretive and superior traditionalists ruled by a circle of pseudo-nobility called hosts. Oddly, the prideful leaders of the Legion did not at first enjoy the presence of their Primarch like other legions did, and it took quite a few duels for the Lion to beat some sense into this group of Astartes. And unfortunately, this feeling of bitterness and wounded pride became a festering undercurrent of heresy that came to a head when Horus attacked the Imperium.
So that's one of the reasons they turned, it seems. Then they turned is because they didn't like it that they had a dad.
Legionnaires that had still shown resistance to the Lion and his new tactics had been sent to guard their home world of Caliban and were very upset about the perceived slight against their honor. In a final act of rebellion, these Marines would become the Fallen, turned against the Imperium, forcing the Lion to destroy most of Caliban and fighting his former best friend Luther. Heavily wounded, the Primarch slept for over 10 millennia until waking up during the Indomitus Crusade. Currently, the Dark Angels are one of the strongest Space Marine chapters, working in concert with their successor chapters better than any other legion, all while hunting down what remains of their fallen brothers in secret.
Okay, so that, I guess, is the second Legion type of thing where it's the refounding. So they're still active. They're still active.
That's weird. All it says here is error 404, Legion not found.
Oh.
Well, on to the next one, I guess. A legion diminished by the near total loss of its gene seed, the Emperor's children were a faint echo of the other legions by the time Fulgrim was found and given command. Driven by his personal need to prove himself as the perfect son of the Emperor and his compulsive need for efficiency, Fulgrim drove his legion to never waste resources or energy, creating some of the most obsessed Marines in the Imperium. For some time after Fulgrim took command, the 3rd Legion wasn't able to take part in many of the more glorious and notable campaigns of the Great Crusade as they worked to replenish their numbers. Once they were ready, however, they proved overeager and ended up volunteering for challenges that would stress even the more better-equipped legions. This exposed them to the taint of chaos early on, and by the time the heresy was being planned, the Emperor's children and their Primarch had almost been fully taken by the ruinous powers. The Emperor...
I believe you said that was a third age. It was Slaanesh. Slaanesh took control. That means they're all perverts. The Prince of Pleasure.
Horus' children and their Primarch were manipulated at almost every step of the way. Horus saw his inexperienced and eager young brother as a useful tool, even leveraging his relationship with Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands Legion in an attempt to get yet another legion on his side. For his part, Fulgrim is depicted as being mostly naive, but we shouldn't forget that he is a Primarch, a superhuman warrior with a huge wrinkly brain and tons of ambition, and his legion was very much the same, a fact that the Prince of Excess exploited with gusto. Masters of siege warfare, these implacable warriors were often more stubborn than the fortresses they garrisoned. Making matters worse, their Primarch Perturabo was a strict disciplinarian, instituting decimation as a punishment whenever the Legion failed to measure up to his high standards, which thankfully wasn't often. Choosing 1 out of every 10 of your friends to be beaten to death is a strong motivator.
Damn, that's terrible. I can't respect that. I can't respect that at all.
To not make mistakes, it seems. The real problem for the Iron Warriors was that they were too good at what they did. Long, protracted sieges and trench warfare are difficult for any soldier, and though Space Marines are superhuman in many ways, they're built for quick, decisive strikes, not drawn-out warfare. The Iron Warriors, though, took these assignments on without complaining so often that they got themselves pigeonholed into the role. Whenever a tough enemy had dug in, the Emperor sent the Iron Warriors to blast them out. Whenever a fortress needed guarding by more than just human infantry, he called on the Iron Warriors. This slowly bred resentment and bitterness in the Legion, and especially its Primarch, who began to get envious of the praise and honors heaped on his more noteworthy brothers.
Listen, obviously, ego is a big thing amongst all these guys, man. These are bred for glory, and sometimes you're not going to find glory in just being and just playing defense. Not going to find a whole lot of glory there.
When the time came and Horus approached him about the possibility of fighting the Emperor and his upstart loyalist brothers, Perturabo and his legion didn't hesitate to say yes, although they remain to this day one of only 2 traitor legions who staunchly refused to worship the gods of chaos. The 5th Legion...
That's interesting. See what you're saying there. And they just replace it with cybernetic limbs. Interesting. Still traitors, though. Still traitors.
Is one of the very few examples of Astartes forces who operated relatively the same before and after the introduction of their Primarch. Originally called the Star Hunters, these Astartes were not often found in the grand battles of the Unification Wars or the Great Crusade, being instead held back for use as scouts and hunters, tracking down enemies of the Emperor for other legions to destroy. Not that the 5th Legion was incapable of fighting campaigns on their own, as their war record during the Great Crusade would attest, but their hit-and-run tactics were better suited for smaller-scale fights, and while effective, the other legions thought very little of their brothers from the 5th. And while this image of the Star Hunters didn't change much after their Primarch Jagatai was found, the newly renamed White Scars began to pick up more culture and pride than they had ever enjoyed. This is because while Jagatai inherited a legion that was already capable of fighting in a style to which he was accustomed, they were hollow, joyless men in desperate need of something to enrich themselves. Jagatai ordered each Marine to take up a hobby: calligraphy, painting, storytelling, needlepoint, anything to let the Marines of the White Scars feel a little bit less like mindless killing machines, and it worked.
I like that. That's pretty cool.
The White Scars kept to their duties of scouting and hunting down the enemies of the Imperium without word of complaint. And when the time came for them to choose a side in the heresy, they stuck with the Loyalists and hunted down their traitorous former allies.
I like that. And I like the look of their Primarch too. He looks cool.
It's even a...
I like the idea of a Renaissance general like this. He seems like a Renaissance general. I dig that. And I think I saw him dual wielding at one point, which is also sexy to me.
Tradition that has persisted to this day, with the great hunts of the Khans regularly finding and dispatching some of the deadliest enemies of the throne. The Rout, the Vilca Fenrica, the Space Wolves, the 6th Legion Astartes has had several names across its history, and it's been quite a bloody one. One of these so-called trefoil legions, the 6th was made for a very specific purpose: to kill other Space Marines.
Okay.
The relatively small size of the Legion was due in large part to the volatility of their gene seed, a precaution that the Emperor baked in just in case his favorite executioners ever decided to turn on him, not that it made any difference to their effectiveness. During the Unification Wars and the early Great Crusade, the 6th Legion was only unleashed when the Emperor wanted to make a point, or if he needed a problem dealt with. The warriors of the 6th soon gained a reputation for being some of the most savage fighters in the Imperium, a fact that worked well to keep potential traitors in line. 2 very important things happened to the 6th Legion during the Great Crusade. Their Primarch, Leman Russ, was found, the Wolf King renaming his legion to the Space Wolves, and at some point the Wolves were called upon to fulfill their intended role as the Emperor's executioners, killing the Primarchs of the 2nd and 11th Legions and mauling the surviving Marines so badly that none dare speak of the 2 lost legions ever again. It was these acts that led to the other Primarchs rightfully fearing Russ and his legion. It was said that out of every Primarch, only the Lion could have stood against the Wolf in combat, a thought that was tested in the bitter feuds the 2 Primarch had over the years. The problem with this reputation, of course, was that the Legionnaires of the 6th and their Primarch never really gained a close relationship with their peers. It's hard to trust someone who you know would kill you as easily as they would drink with you, should the Emperor command it at least. This was taken to its extreme during the heresy, when Horus successfully tricked the wolves into attacking the Thousand Sons with some false orders, which kept them from helping their allies on Terra during the siege. To this day, the wolves are known for being some of the most incredibly deadly warriors in the galaxy and are not above fighting other Imperials who step out of line. Out of all the Space Marine legions, only the 7th has claim to Terra as its official homeworld. The Imperial Fists established themselves early on as excellent defense troops, being proficient in the building of defenses and the nuances of a more aggressive defense style that lent itself very well to the abilities of a Space Marine force. This changed very little once they were reunited with their Primarch.
Yeah, I'm not surprised then that they would go traitor after being attacked like that, even though they were tricked. So that's just good story though. That's good story and good lore.
Rogel Dorn. Dorn was staunchly loyal and favored uncomplicated, straightforward approaches to every problem. Under his stewardship, the Imperial Fist Legion became as well known for their heavy assault tactics as they were for their ability to defend. This led them to be used quite often as the Emperor's blunt instrument, either breaking sieges that had held on for too long or defending desperate last stands that the Emperor could not afford to lose. In this way, the Imperial Fists gained a rivalry with the Iron Warriors, the latter of which became very bitter that the Fists often received honors for the daring actions that they were assigned to, while they themselves were often relegated to fighting the longer, less exciting parts of those same sieges. For his part, Dorn seemed completely uninterested in that sort of rivalry, thinking only of his duty to the Imperium.
For the Emperor!
It was Dorn who constructed the imposing defenses of the Imperial Palace on Terra, and it was Dorn who accompanied the Emperor onto Horus's battle barge at the climax of the siege. His inability to stop the deaths of both his brother Sanguinius and the Emperor very nearly broke him, and while he very nearly came to blows with his brother Guilliman in the aftermath, he eventually decided it was best to keep what was left of the Imperium together. Today, the Imperial Fists and their successor chapters fight as roving armies, crusading from one system to the next, never settling down. So while the Fists claim Holy Terra as
All right, that looks freaking cool right there. What is that? Can somebody tell me what that is right there? That looks like a space station. That looks badass.
their home world, their real headquarters is their ancient mobile battle station called the Phalanx.
That's cool. That's cool. I like that.
The 8th Legion, the Night Lords, are one of the most controversial of the Astartes forces, and that's saying something.
That looks chaos right there.
The Emperor had his executioners to deal with traitors, and his spies and his scouts, all roles useful for warfare on a galactic scale. But the problem is that, like any tyrant, the Emperor was worried about the masses of people rising up in revolt. No matter how many Marines he made or how many campaigns he fought, the trillions and trillions of people in the new Imperium would always outnumber his armies and could force him to spend too much energy putting out the fires of revolution instead of conquering the enemies of humanity. So the Emperor chose to make himself a terror force.
Oh no. Basically the Gestapo.
The Legionnaires of the 8th specialized in scare tactics, not like the Space Wolves, who were so terrifying in combat that other warriors would know that they couldn't win. The Night Lords would cut your power and creep in dark shadows. They would take over the Vox feeds and blare the screams of the dying to the rest of the populace. They would flay people and leave them to be found in the town square.
So it's psychological warfare. They specialize in psychological warfare.
They fought dirty, ugly. They made the idea of fighting the Imperium terrifying, and it wasn't long before the other Primarchs took a stand. And here is probably the biggest instance of cowardice by the Emperor himself. It's very clear that the Emperor created the Night Lords to be this way and encouraged them, ordered them to act like this. Just like with Angron of the World Eaters, the Emperor knew that the Primarch of the 8th, Conrad Kurz, was racked with mental instability, brought
there. All right, so that's what I meant. We talked about that last week with the World Eaters. Emperor Bad Dad. You're putting psychotics in charge of your superhuman armies. Bad dad.
on by conditions that might have been curable, but chose to do nothing and disavow the Night Lords when it became known that they committed acts of terror, even and especially upon the citizens of the Imperium. Needless to say that the Night Lords decided to work with Horus and the other traitors when the time came, even though they never accepted worship of the Chaos Gods. Their only goal post-heresy has seemingly been to tear down the rotting edifice of the Imperium that betrayed them. Originally designed as one of a handful of shock troop armies, the legion that would become the Blood Angels were often deployed either as the very tip of the Emperor's spear or wherever a stubborn enemy needed to be wiped out wholesale. It was a job the 9th Legion excelled at, often replenishing lost Marines with new stock taken from their enemies, and in this way, the Legion gained
that's a great unclean one right there. That's a great unclean one.
A reputation for returning from dangerous campaigns with the same number of Marines it had departed with, but that wasn't the only rumor. All Marines are capable of eating flesh to gain information or emergency sustenance, but the 9th Legion became known for ritualistically eating their slain foes after battle, indulging in a red thirst for blood. This reputation pushed them further from the rest of the Imperium as they were shunned and slowly began to devolve into feral murderers.
They're going to go Khorne. I feel like they're going to go Khorne.
And then Sanguinius was found. The angelic Primarch had grown up on the world of Baal, and when he was given his legion, the incredibly psychic Primarch instantly felt a connection to his gene sons. Instead of demanding they swear an oath to him, Sanguinius swore an oath to them. They would either rise together or fall together. Under his leadership, the Blood Angels went from pariahs
Khorne wishes to see that I felt like they were going to go chaos
to one of the most decorated assault legions in the Imperium. It's no surprise then that the Marines of the Blood Angels Legion had the strongest bond with their Primarch, only strengthened by his psychic abilities. When Horus slew Sanguinius aboard his ship at the climax of the Siege of Terra, the entire legion broke, succumbing to an illness which would become known as the Black Rage. As the rage takes hold, afflicted Marines begin to believe they are Sanguinius, facing down their treacherous brother Horus, and dying. No one knows how or when it will affect a Blood Angels Marine, but the effects are almost always irreversible, with notable exceptions.
All right, so essentially they will never turn because the psychic connection when Sanguinius died will have them automatically hating chaos. That's kind of insanely cool. That's insanely cool. It's like, yeah, they're never going to turn because it's baked into their psyche to hate chaos now.
Today, the Blood Angels are one of the strongest chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, but the rage still afflicts them, forcing Blood Angels leadership to place their raving comrades into doomed squads called the Death Company, so that they might seek their end in battle. The 10th Legion had always been as relentless as their Primarch, even before Ferrus Manus was found. Called the Stormwalkers during the Unification Wars, the 10th Legion had a very simple, straightforward approach to warfare, not unlike the warriors of the Death Guard. In fact, by the beginning of the Great Crusade, it was apparent that the Stormwalkers had gained an affinity for using heavy vehicles and mobile artillery pieces to simply advance towards an enemy until it wasn't a problem anymore.
Sally forth and crush them. We will grease the treads of our tanks with their blood.
This hardly changed when Ferrus Manus was given the Legion, and it was named the Iron Hands in honor of the Primarch's literal metal hands. What Manus really brought to his Legion was a need to purge weakness. The warriors of the 10th became known for using their advanced machinery to turn aside enormous enemy armies, breaking overwhelming forces with their technology. The Marines of this legion would also make extensive use of bionic replacements for limbs, as the sort of fighting they were used to often led to mangled soldiers. This led to the Legion having a much stronger working relationship with the tech priests of Mars compared to other legions. This affinity for machines, coupled with their belief that the flesh is weak, led to some dire consequences after the heresy began. Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus had been some of the closest friends out of all the Primarchs, but when Fulgrim tried to get Manus to join the traitors, the stoic Iron Hands Primarch tried to kill him. When they finally met again on the battlefield, neither man could kill the other until Fulgrim in his grief gave himself to the demon in his sword and Manus was decapitated.
Ooh.
The Iron Hands shattered, with different factions following various captains on missions of vengeance. This almost destroyed what was left of the Legion, with factions blaming the traitors for their cowardice, their allies for their lack of strength, and even blaming Manus and the Iron Hands captains for indulging in their emotions. Seeking to purge this weakness, the remaining Iron Hands became cold, calculating fighters who want nothing more than to purge the weakness of humanity. There has been some pushback against the doctrine recently, but the Iron Hands remain ruthlessly emotionless as a whole. Sorry, your legion is in another castle. What's going on? There can't be two missing legions, can there? The 12th Legion was born as the Warhounds and immediately established themselves as an effective assault force. Their discipline in training and combat deployments was similar to legions like the Luna Wolves or the early Blood Angels, but their aggression and ferocity once engaged in combat was much closer to the disposition of the Space Wolves. The Emperor even kept the Warhounds in reserve for much of the Unification War in case he needed to keep other legions in line, again, not unlike the Space Wolves. However, early in the Great Crusade, the prison colony on the asteroid Cerberus rose up in revolt, led by a small group of Thunder Warriors who had somehow survived the purges. Having no other legion nearby, the Emperor sent in the 12th, and the Warhounds went to work. The invasion began at 0300 hours, and by 0808, the all-clear was given by the Warhounds commander. After being asked what the state of the prisoners was, the commander replied that he had not been ordered to take any. And from then on, the Legion was used as the premier assault group of the Imperium and was embedded in the 13th Expeditionary Fleet, working alongside elements of the Imperial Army. And it was under these conditions that the 12th Legion was reunited with their Primarch Angron, who was angry about being ripped away from his gladiator family.
And here's what we learned about last week, and now they're going to become the World Eaters, okay?
And decided to kill a bunch of his Marines about it. Eventually, they calmed down, but the rest of the history of this legion is centered around them trying and failing to gain approval of their angry Gene father. They changed their name to the World Eaters. They began to act more recklessly in their assault actions. They started getting implants similar to Angron's that drove them insane with rage, and none of it worked. When their Primarch sided with Horus because of his unfair and frankly cruel treatment at the hands of the Emperor, the World Eaters obediently followed him right into damnation. The mighty 13th Legion Astartes.
The Ultramarines! the Ultramarines, anybody coming in will automatically recognize the Ultramarines, because the standard blue Space Marine, that is basically the iconic shot of a Space Marine.
Astartes began as the Warborn, a legion whose gene seed was noted for its high adaptability, leading to the legion becoming the home of refugees instead of taking its recruits from a specific cultural area of Old Terra. This would be a reoccurring pattern, as they would begin by taking in recruits from the defeated enemies of the Emperor on Earth, and eventually take in the loyal Marines of censured or lost legions during the heresy. Well suited to the work of a backbone force, the 13th Legion gradually became known as a competent campaigning legion, often taking on whole war zones without support from other legions. This worked well with the leadership style of their Primarch Rabute Guilliman, who was adept at not only the business of persecuting wars, but administrating afterwards. The Legion's name was changed to the Ultramarines, and so began one of the most successful careers of any Legion during the Great Crusade. Maybe it was Guilliman's excellent organizational mind, or the ease at which his Legion took to things like diplomacy and logistics, but either way, the Ultramarines conquered more worlds than any Legion except the Luna Wolves, and their numbers swelled to easily eclipse any of the other Astartes armies. There are rumors that this sudden swell of Ultramarine recruits is due to, okay, I know I just had the notes for this section, and now they're not here. Okay, we'll move on for now, but if I find that passage, I'll circle back. Being the largest legion by far, Horus knew he had to keep the Ultramarines away from Terra or his siege would be stopped easily. So he threw large elements of the Wordbearers, World Eaters, Alpha Legion, and even the Night Lords at their home system of Makraj in order to keep them fighting there.
And we do know from our Horus Heresy education that the Ultramarines, they didn't make it. They got tied up and bogged down for so long that even after they broke through, they didn't make it back in time.
Instead of in Seoul. And the numbers of the Ultramarines is still a huge factor in their operations today, with the chapter having more splinter armies than any other original legion. The Ultramarines literally wrote the book on the Astartes, and love them or hate them, they are one of the most effective forces in the galaxy. A legion built on resilience, the 14th Legion, or the Dusk Raiders as they were called at the beginning, were tough even by Astartes standards. Oddly, they began as an ambush force, striking at dusk as their name implies, and making extensive use of heavier armor types so that they could simply walk into enemy fire for maximum intimidation. The Dusk Raiders fought like this for over 8 decades into the Great Crusade before Mortarion, their Primarch, was found. Himself a stoic, tough fighter, Mortarion recognized his new legion as agents of the inevitable and renamed them the Death Guard. Their way of fighting subtly switched around this time to attrition-style combat, their already tough physiques lending themselves extra protection in battlefields with harsh environmental conditions. In some places that were poisonous or devoid of atmosphere, the warriors of the 14th were sent to show the enemies of humanity that the Emperor would not be turned aside by anything. This led the Legion to fight mostly as foot sloggers, rarely using transports, bikes, or jump packs like other legions did, and instead simply advancing on foot in both power armor and Terminator armor. Mortarion only really became close with Horus, and so even before the heresy began, it was very likely that he would have fought for his brother against the Emperor. But it should be noted that not all his legionnaires felt the same, and if it was not for Nathaniel Garro and the flight of the Eisenstein, the loyal forces of the Imperium would not have known about Horus's treachery until it was too late to stop him. And while Mortarion originally had no intentions of lowering himself to worshipping the powers of chaos, the Great Unclean One had other plans and marooned Mortarion's fleet in a pocket of the warp. The Destroyer Plague tore through his marines, maiming and torturing them until Mortarion pledged himself to Nurgle just to stop the pain. When the Death Guard finally arrived at Terra, the bloated forms of the new Death Guard were terrifying and nearly unkillable. Mortarion himself ascended to demonhood and plagues the Imperium to this day.
Jaha. Man. That's disgusting.
The Thousand Sons are probably one of the most tragic stories in the Imperium. They were originally formed from recruits born inside the Emperor's lands on Terra, and so many hadn't suffered war much before the Unification Wars. They were the sons of nobility already loyal to the Emperor, and many had been educated in some manner before volunteering. They were formed by the Emperor himself as the Unification Wars were coming to a close, and exactly 1,000 carefully picked student aspirants were the foundation of the 15th Legion. Aside from their beginnings, the Astartes of the Thousand Sons weren't particularly notable how they fought or were organized until they started developing psychic powers. And while the curious Marines of the 15th were at first happy about this development, it very quickly spiraled out of control. At this point in history, not many people in the Imperium knew about the warp and the chaotic powers within, and that was by design. Starving the Chaos Gods of attention was an effective way of robbing their
Makes
power.
sense.
The warriors of the Thousand Sons did not know this and began to horrifically mutate. As they slowly brought the outbreaks under control, other Primarchs like Mortarion and Rogel Dorn became aware of the Psykers in the 15th Legion and pushed to have them censured. No mutant should be allowed in the Emperor's forces. But the 15th Legion couldn't help but learn more, and so continued in secret, especially after being reunited with their Primarch Magnus, whose psychic might was second only to the Emperor's. He stabilized the mutations and reorganized the Legion into chapters, a term which would eventually be used for every Astartes force. Upsettingly, it was Magnus's attempt to warn the Emperor about Horus that got his Legion almost destroyed by the Space Wolves, who were forced to deal with the Thousand Sons for breaking the rules about using psychic powers, even if it was to warn the Emperor. Now on the run from the Imperium,
See, I remember that from when we looked at the Horus Heresy.
the 15th Legion had no choice but to hide in the warp, which brought the mutations back. Desperate chapter leaders attempted a complicated spell, the Rubric of Ahriman, which stopped the mutations at the cost of turning their bodies to dust. Most Thousand Marines are now barely sentient, and their forces travel the galaxy on mysterious missions for their god Tzeentch. and to find a cure. Mirroring the rise and fall of their Primarch Horus Lupercal, the 16th Legion started out as one of the Emperor's most trusted forces. The Terran recruits were formed from wandering tribes known for pragmatism and independence, making the bulk of the original 16th Legion into fierce and effective shock troops. It was this quality which led the Emperor to choose them from the pacification of Luna, a battle which captured the genetic laboratories that the Emperor needed to complete his Space Marine program. As a reward, the 16th Legion was named the Luna Wolves and given much of the first batches of Gene Seed, making them one of the strongest legions even before the Great Crusade started. And that hardly changed when Horus was found on the very nearby world of Chthoniya. Horus was actually the very first Primarch to be discovered, and for 30 years was the only Primarch, leading him to gaining not only a very strong bond with his legion, but also the Emperor, and to some extent the whole Imperium. He was the Emperor's favorite son. We spoke earlier about how being the first legion gave the Dark Angels a bit of an ego. Imagine being the only legion with a Primarch for 3 decades, and that Primarch being the obvious favorite among his brothers. Needless to say, the Luna Wolves were a bit puffed up. During the Great Crusade, the 16th Legion pushed themselves to conquer more worlds, pursue more enemies, fight more glorious wars, and win more accolades than their fellow legions. Only the Ultramarines even came close. Then came Ulanor. The Ulanor Crusade was a defining moment for the Imperium as a whole, but the Luna Wolves more than most. The largest Orc empire was destroyed as the Emperor himself took to the field for the final time during the Great Crusade, leaving for a mysterious project under the Terran surface and proclaiming Horus the War Master, Supreme Commander of Imperial forces, second only to the Emperor himself. When he left, the Emperor suggested that Horus rename his legion to reflect his new position, and though he originally refused, he began to think the other Primarchs still saw him just as a peer, and so he relented, and the 16th Legion became the Sons of Horus. What happened soon after is a story for another video, but
which we've covered.
But Horus was infected by the powers of chaos thanks in part to the scheming of his brother Lorgar of the Word-Bearers, and the slow slide into heresy began. After the climactic battle with the Emperor during the Siege of Terra, what was left of the Sons of Horus rallied around their former first captain Abaddon and renamed themselves the Black Legion. The story...
Yeah, I can't, honestly, just because of my own personal affinity, I can't wait till we do orcs. I love orcs. Yes. The Wog! I mean, here's the thing. Chaos is the ultimate evil in all of this, but everybody cowers in front of a full throttle Wog. And the only way a full throttle Wog stops is if the Warlord dies or something, or just something distracts the Warlord. Ugh. Oh, Wog! Okay, I'm done. I'm done orking.
Of the 17th Legion is a strange one, but that's fitting considering they're the most direct cause of the Horus heresy. Originally named the Imperial Heralds, the 17th Legion was made up of the sons of defeated enemies on Old Terra and were raised to understand the crimes of their parents, a connection that no other Space Marine was allowed to keep during their transition. This had the effect of making the Marines of the 17th much more zealous in their pursuit of their orders and the Imperial truth, the working doctrine of the Imperium which favored logic and reason above all else. To go along with this, the 17th Legion were the official emissaries of the Emperor, delivering his ultimatums to potential enemies by a single Marine in black armor, a skull helmet, and a winged mace. That's right, the 17th Legion invented Space Marine chaplains. Things took a turn, however, when their Primarch was discovered. Lorgar Aurelian was raised to be a devout man and believed very strongly that religion was a fundamental part of being human, which would be a nice sentiment if his two most devoted advisors hadn't been worshippers of chaos before they had been made into Astartes. Once reunited with his legion, Lorgar renamed them the Word-Bearers and began twisting the Imperial truth into a true religion with the Emperor at its center. Wherever they went, they built shrines to the Master of Humanity until finally, the Emperor had enough. He was going to sick the Space Wolves on them, removing them from history like the 2nd and 11th Legions, but the other Primarchs convinced him to show leniency, and so the Ultramarines were ordered to level the Wordbearers' capital city, and they were made to kneel in the ash and repledge themselves to the Imperial truth. And that was all that was needed. Lorgar's advisors told him that there were other gods more worthy of his worship, and so the first Primarch slid into Chaos worship and began planning to corrupt his greatest brother, Horus. Today, the Wordbearers continue this sort of work, seeding cults in Imperial territory and furthering the worship of the ruinous powers. The second of the most carefully and secretly made legions, the 18th Legion, had a very specific purpose like the Space Wolves and the Alpha Legion. These Marines and the special changes to their gene seed were kept secret even from the other legions for quite some time. For the 18th Legion, this purpose was to be the heroes of humanity. Kept in reserve for most of the Unification Wars, the 18th was suddenly unleashed against one of the Emperor's most dangerous enemies. 26,000 Astartes went in and only 1,000 walked out again. But the enemy was defeated and no other lives had been lost. Their Primarch Vulcan saved the day in much the same manner during a desperate fight against a large Orc raiding fleet. Vulcan, who had been found but not yet reunited with his legion, suddenly arrived with 3,000 new recruits and master-forged equipment for his battered legion, who had been holding the line without him. Too late to save the former commanders of the 18th, Vulcan knelt to the men he had been too late to save, and the legion was his, renamed then to the Salamanders. This is why the 18th Legion was always the smallest. They'd swoop into these desperate situations and hold the line until their charges were safely away, or until they'd won, but always at the cost of many Astartes' lives.
That's heroic badassery. Putting yourself second to those you're protecting.
As for the heresy itself, the Salamanders did their best to be effective with their small numbers, but were subject to several terrible defeats at the hands of the traitor legions. Vulcan himself was even captured briefly by the Night Lord, but after several executions, the Night Haunter admitted that he didn't know how to kill the apparently
unkillable
immortal Salamander's Primarch. The journeys of Vulcan are too complex to voice here, but just know that he's still out there somewhere waiting for his chance to return to his heroic gene sons. Until then, they'll continue being the Imperium's shield. In the very beginning, the 19th Legion was a guerrilla force, striking from the shadows at targets that would cause the most disruption for an enemy. They operated quite similarly to the Night Lords in this regard, the intent being to sow terror wherever they went and ensure that the prospect of fighting the Imperium was too frightening to contemplate. Earlier, however, they were often tasked with supporting the larger Luna Wolves Legion in their campaign, so they never really gained the disgust of their peers in the same way that the Night Lords did. Regardless, after almost a century of the Great Crusade, the 19th Primarch was found. Corvus Corax had been living on a world called Deliverance, and had spent much of that time leading a rebellion against the cruel rulers of that planet. When he saw how his legion made war, he was disgusted and purged the old leadership. He believed there were better ways to make an enemy fall than to terrorize innocent people. Instead, he trained his legion to become expert trackers and assassins, using their already prodigious skills in stealth operations to make them even more effective against dismantling power structures. Their success led to the newly renamed Raven Guard being requested for many campaigns, including the conflict at Eastvan V. Already one of the smallest legions, the Raven Guard were set upon by an ambush as the traitor legions revealed themselves by turning their guns on their former allies. Outnumbered and fighting a straight-out battle, not something the Raven Guard were well suited for, they were almost completely wiped out.
Aww.
The problems didn't stop there either, with the Raven Guard gene seed beginning to deteriorate faster than normal, produce horrible mutations, and forcing recruitment to a crawl. This is a problem that persisted for most of the Legion's existence until the recent introduction of the Primaris Marines, which finally seems to have solved the problem. The Emperor had his wolfish executioners and his draconic heroes. The last thing he needed was a legion of serpentine spies. Kept intentionally at low membership like the other two specialty legions, extremely little is known about the Alpha Legion, originally known as the Ghost Legion. This seems to have been intentional as well, with false records being implanted at the same time as others are simply erased. This is because the special purpose of the Alpha Legion was to run subterfuge operations. Imperial records only confirm their existence with vague reports of small Alpha units operating far ahead of the main battle lines, gathering intel, assassinating key targets, and setting up informant networks among the Emperor's enemies, sometimes years before they even saw an Imperial fleet. From what we know, the standard operating procedure of the Alpha Legion goes like this. A small handful of Alpha Legion operatives, Astartes and mortal humans, arrive at the target location and begin setting up a network. This network begins to destabilize the enemy organizational structure with things like crime rings, political corruption, targeted assassinations, and the spreading of false information and propaganda. Once the
He fights for freedom.
enemy has been suitably thrown into disarray, the main Alpha Legion forces arrive and attack from as many angles as possible, spreading more chaos and finishing the job in a lightning strike. The nature of the Alpha Legion is such that we can never truly be sure of anything about them, but we do know that their Primarch is a man named Alpharius, a name that every Alpha Legionnaire gives to anyone outside the Legion when asked for identification. They also make attempts to look like their Primarch, who is by all accounts one of the smallest Primarchs. Oh, also he's got a twin brother. The biggest secret of the 20th Legion is that their Primarch is actually twins, Alpharius and Omegon. The two have even pretended to be one another to such an extent that while Alpharius is confirmed to have been killed sometime after the heresy, we're still not certain of which one died, or even if he actually did die. This cloud of confusion goes so far as to make it completely uncertain whether the Alpha Legion actually sided with Horus or not during the heresy. They certainly fought with him against the Loyalists and do the work of the Chaos to this day, but there are whispers that they are working from within to destabilize the efforts of the ruinous powers.
That's wild. That's wild.
Overall, the Space Marine Legions are some of 40K's most discussed areas of lore. They have evolved from simple two-dimensional flavors of combat styles to full-blown characters in an epic space opera. Thank you so much for watching our very first long-form video. We hope you'll stick with us.
That was very well done. This guy did a good job. What's this guy's name again? This guy is more lore. That was a very good lore video. Had good humor to it. Informative here and there. Excuse me. Ooh, oh, excuse me. Let's see. I liked the 5th Legion. They were cool. I like the idea of the intelligent, very educated Legion, and of course, and their guy looks cool. I saw he was dual at one point. He looks like a badass. Cal, I saw you mention there that that kind of align. I think my sniper playstyle aligns with both those types of things. Trackers who would use snipers and the Raven Guard, that they were aligned both. And the Raven Guard, of course, has a color scheme I can get with, but I do like a good super white color scheme too. I've done that before and other things like there. So, but that was cool. That was cool. I appreciate that. I had a lot. I enjoyed that, and this stuff is great. This is why 40K is so much fun. You guys are right. The lore for this stuff is so deep, so involving. It's a joy to listen to, and you just hope and pray that these things don't get destroyed. That's the thing. Okay. This is a reserve for tomorrow. Nick Cannon's loin spawn. I'm prepaying for tomorrow. I DM'd you the video on Twitter. Yes, tomorrow is Juneteenth. Yeah, Juneteenth. So yeah, that's tomorrow. I like the idea of the scout type of thing. That looked cool. I like their style. I like their educated styles. Like, we want to be more than just these warriors. We're gonna renaissance it up. I like that. And I do like the idea of the Raven Guard being the good assassins, not like the other ones from the ones we saw earlier, the terror, like the Night Lords. But these guys are like, you know what? We're gonna do it with class. We're gonna do it hot and cool like that. So I feel like that's where I'm leaning. That's where I'm leaning. So yeah, I think that's where I'm leaning. That's where I'm leaning. The White Scars and the Raven Guard. Yeah, but I don't think I can go along with right now. Not sure what their side is. I want to be loyalist for the Emperor. I don't want to be a traitor legion. I want to be a traitor. So anyway, all right. So we've got a video reserved for tomorrow. I'll look at that later. Thank you, Nick Cannon's Loin Spawn, because we know who that is. I'll never learn. Yeah, we'll never know. The world may never know. And if you guys don't have anything else you want to get to today, then we'll wrap up the show. We're almost 2 hours in. The Wednesdays run long because the Warhammer lore videos are a joy to talk about. And I will break off to little stories throughout it as I did today. Anyway, so thank you guys. Tomorrow is Thursday, the Juneteenth stuff. Tomorrow we'll also be getting my live review of the SpongeBob season 1, episode 1 episode. That'll happen. Yeah. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. I'll go. We'll keep going. I got nothing to do today. We can go another lore video. I got nothing else planned. I'll do it. Hell yeah. I'll do another lore video. Hell yeah, I'll do another lore video. Let's go. I love lore. I love it. I mean, I got nothing. Tonight is my night. Ow. Freaking. Can't wait till I'm not enclosed by things from all sides. I don't have to worry about banging into shit. Yeah. So while Kel is digging up another lore video, so let's see. As a reminder, what's going on the rest of the week? When we go back to non-Space Marine 2 gaming, we are up to Lunar Remastered Collection. I did start it, so we're ready to go. I've done my preparation. As soon as we are ready for some extra gaming, could be tonight, but I have to be encouraged to do it tonight. Otherwise, it is my night off. We will get into Lunar Remastered, playing Lunar 1 and Lunar 2. Tomorrow night, we'll be playing Space Marine 2 with Alf. Kel may be our third. Let's see if I don't think Alf has anybody else lined up, so it probably will be you, Kel. And then let's see. Ballbusters Friday. I don't know if we have a guest, but that doesn't matter because it's Ballbusters. It's going to be disaster anyway. There will be a new game on Ballbusters this week, though. Jeremy's instituting a new game. He's taking after me with this show. He's going to be putting it in the chat hands. There'll be a new type of selection where if certain things happen, other panelists for like 5 minutes at a time will control the stream. Could be me. Could be Cloud. God help us. Okay. So, hang on. I got the hiccups again. Hold on. From Kel again for the Warhammer Wednesday videos, part 2. All right. What do we got for another $20 in stream elements? Thank you, Kel, for bringing us this cool shit. Okay. There's that. That's for tomorrow. And here we go. All right. Let's just, do I still have that up? No, let's bring it up. I got to open a new window. Hold on. New window. Okay. This is what do we got here? Arbiter Ian, our reliable Arbiter Ian. And we are now going to do the second founding in everything Space Marine and every Space Marine chapter created. Oh boy. All right, let's get some more lore on Space Marines. Let's do it. Back with Arbiter Ian. Thank you, Kel, for the $20. Post-Horse Heresy second foundings. Okay, yeah, so we're going to get more. I love learning. There we go. All right, thank you, Kel, for the $20, giving us more lore goodness. All right, here we go.
Most fans of Warhammer 40k are familiar with the concept of the Space Marine chapter.
Yes.
The Space Marines of the 41st millennium are broken down into innumerable separate chapters spread across the galaxy, each a wholly independent organization with its own heraldry and traditions, its own homeworld or domain to protect, and looking to its own recruitment and maintenance. But that wasn't how the Space Marines were originally organized. So how did it come about? In this video, we're going to take a look at the second founding, the great reorganization of the Adeptus Astartes, and all the different chapters that were created from it. In Warhammer 40k, Space Marines are everywhere. And I don't just mean filling out the shelves of your local hobby shop. The various chapters of Space Marines are stationed on home worlds, orbital fortress monasteries, or in crusade fleets that are spread across the Imperium, organized according to an ancient text known as the Codex Astartes that specifies their numbers, about 1,000 Marines per chapter, their organization into various companies and squads, their tactics, their support staff, and the ancient rights each chapter master has to rule over their homeworld, demand tithes of men and material, and to commit their forces to the defense of the Imperium as they see fit, with no other branch of the Imperium able to claim authority over them. But that wasn't always the case. Once, Space Marines marched to war in great legions, rank upon rank of soldiers who were very much the focus and center of the Imperium's war machine, commanding fleets and armies on expeditions of conquest. The shift that broke down the great legions of old and created the chapters we know was instituted in the early 32nd millennium by Rabute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, in an event known as the Second Founding. And it was part of a series of reforms across all the armed forces of the Imperium designed to better protect it.
Right there we see the results of the Space Wolves. All records removed for 2, all records removed for 11. We don't know. We will never know because they must be blotted from history for reasons unknown
in the years to come. But this reorganization wasn't implemented to better protect the Imperium from the forces of alien empires, Xenos incursions, or demonic invasion, but from itself. The Second Founding, the creation of the Space Marine chapters as we know it, was very much a reaction to the events of the Horus Heresy.
And we can understand that because it's essentially decentralizing. Makes a lot of sense. The reason Horus was able to get what he got done is because everything was centralized around the Primarch and a Legion, and when the Primarch fell, the Legion generally fell. If everything's kind of broken down into decentralized sections, it's a lot harder to turn, millions of Space Marines into a fighting force against the Empire.
200 years before, the Emperor had set out on his great crusade from Terra, accompanied by the Astartes of what retroactively became known as the First Founding. 20 legions of Space Marines, each led by their Primarch, each with their own way of doing war, and each many thousands strong. These legions led expeditionary fleets across the galaxy, forcing compliance on all the old human civilizations they encountered and killing Xenos wherever they could. The expeditionary fleets were massive, self-sufficient combined arms formations, often a corps of Astartes in command, sometimes even a Primarch, accompanied by fleets of warships, troop transports, mobile forges and escorts, millions of regular human auxilia and militia forces, infantry, armored companies, artillery batteries and air support, and more specialist attachments like Mechanicum Tagmata, allied night houses or Titan legions. And in the context of the Great Crusade, this made sense. The galaxy was vast and needed to be conquered quickly for the Emperor's plans to take effect, so expeditionary fleets carried with them everything they needed to do that. They had diplomats and iterators to treat with newly found strands of humanity, remembrancers to record their actions, and colossal armies to subdue anyone who resisted and to provide the garrison forces that would be left in their wake to ensure compliance held. These thousands of fleets were scattered far and wide and often self-sufficient. They developed their own idiosyncratic cultures and practices, often different from the core of the Imperium, and their loyalties were often towards their commanders first, the people who paid them in glory and honor and more practical things like settlement rights of newly discovered planets. And when the Horus heresy broke out, this proved to be a liability. During the course of the Crusade, 2 of the original 20 legions of the first founding were lost, leaving 18, by this point massive legions, some hundreds of thousands of legionnaires strong. Half of the Primarchs and their legions, 9, sided with Horus and turned against the Imperium. And I have a video on what they're all up to right now, just here. But because of the expeditionary system, it wasn't just the legions who turned, it was their entire fleets.
That's what I said.
When a Primarch turned to Horus, the vast majority of his legion tended to side with him, and that meant the expeditionary fleets those Astartes commanded turned too. The Imperium faced 9 legions of traitor Astartes, but also traitor militia and auxilia, traitor mechanicum and titans, and fleets of traitor warships. There were instances of rebellion, isolated commanders who stayed loyal and fought against the rest of their fleet or legion, but in most cases, these were swiftly put down. The vast majority of the armies of the traitors simply followed their Primarchs into the service of chaos. Of course, the heresy failed. Horus's initial plan had been to establish a power base in the galactic north, isolating many of the larger loyalist legions behind great warp storms in the far galactic east, and then to swiftly move on a direct route to Terra to kill the Emperor and assume command. And also, I've got a video of exactly how that played out there too. But suffice to say, it didn't quite work like that. The traitors scored early victories, knocking some legions out of the war at Prospero and Istvan, but they were harried throughout their journey and forced to fight a brutal, protracted siege of the Imperial Palace that ground down both sides. By the end of the heresy, when the Emperor killed Horus, being mortally wounded himself and installed on the Golden Throne, both the loyalist and traitor forces were in tatters, reduced to mere thousands of Astartes, and those isolated loyalist legions, particularly the Ultramarines, always the largest legion, had broken through the warp storms and swept away any shreds of traitor resistance, with hundreds of thousands of relatively fresh and well-supplied Astartes. The immediate years following the Horus heresy were known as the Scouring. The surviving traitors were hounded back into the Eye of Terror by the avenging loyalist legions. Planets were recaptured and rebels punished, but while all 9 loyalist legions took part in this, some were in sorry states. The legions that had been dealt the greatest blows at the start of the war, the Raven Guard, Salamanders, and Iron Hands, along with the Space Wolves, had numbers in the low thousands. They'd never really had time to rebuild. The 3 that defended Terra, the Imperial Fists, the White Scars, and the Blood Angels, had fared little better, though the Blood Angels, as the first of the isolated legions to arrive, had larger numbers. So the bulk of the Scouring was enacted by the Dark Angels, who would quickly have their own problems to deal with, and, of course, by the Ultramarines. Robute Guilliman, the Avenging Sun, swept his forces across the galaxy. He was a peerless organizer and statesman. His eastern realm of Ultramar composed of 500 worlds, and so, despite their initial losses in the war, the Ultramarines have rebuilt back to full strength pretty quickly. In the time of the Scouring, the Ultramarines were everywhere, shoring up the defenses of the Imperium, and Guilliman took over its administration, becoming Lord Commander of all of its military forces, as well as the Imperial region in lieu of the Emperor. And in this position, he enacted sweeping reforms to make sure another heresy could never happen.
That's smart.
Never again would one person, even a Primarch, command as much power as the expeditionary fleets or legions of old. The organizational systems that run the Astra Militarum were instigated, wherein each regiment raised would be focused around a different discipline with no combined arms ability. This new Imperial Guard was separated from the Imperial Navy with a different command.
This explains. I've started slowly playing through the story of Space Marine 2, just because it unlocks certain things for the rest of the gameplay, and it explains why. Because I'm thinking, man, the Ultramarines, they got. This is me coming into it only knowing what I've been shown so far. I think myself, man, the Ultramarines, they got plenty of troops. Why are they seem to have a problem having troops to deal with this problem this with the invasion going on here, that they don't have troops for. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Now that explains things, because this is just the small unit is all that's available. So it makes sense. It makes sense to me now. It makes sense why an Christian guy says, well, I've only got 3 guys I can send with you. I've only got 3. And now I understand, because I'm thinking, wait, you have the Ultramarines. You got the hugest army running around the galaxy right now. You can't spare, but okay, now I get it. There's only this little decentralized unit dealing with the attacks that are going on in Space Marine 2. So now I get it.
Structure, each of which limited the ability of rebellious generals or marshals to move against the Imperium. A rebellious infantry officer would lack artillery support. A rebellious naval admiral would lack ground troops. But the biggest of these reforms was the proposed...
I know that. What I mean is, I know there's going to be more than 3. That's why there's the mod for 12 if you're playing on PC. What I'm saying is, now it makes sense. The idea of I have limited resources. Now it makes sense, because it's not like you have access to the entire Ultramarine Legion. It's just that now I understand it.
Breakdown of the remaining loyalist legions. Gilliman suggested that the legions be broken down into their individual chapters. Chapter was already a division used by various legions, officially denoting a formation of 10 companies, nominally numbering 1,000 Marines, though some legions either didn't use it or used the term for much larger formations. Each of these chapters would be organized according to the principles laid out in Gilliman's Codex Astartes, a tome that was not only a treatise on the methods of war to be used by the Space Marines, but also specified the number of companies, ranks, and support staff in a chapter, and the markings required. The methods in the Codex have been tried and tested through the heresy and the scouring by the Ultramarines. Gilliman's inductee units, squads raised quickly mid-war to fight in the heresy, had already been organized along lines that would be familiar to anyone reading the Codex. As the Imperium shifted under Gilliman from an empire of constant expansion to one of defense and consolidation, these new chapters will be posted throughout the galaxy, either to specific worlds or regions of space, or as fleet-based crusading chapters, free to intervene wherever they wished. The chapters would also be independent of the rest of the Imperium, each an isolated and self-sufficient force. The chapter masters would be the planetary governors of their own homeworlds, which were sacrosanct from interference by the rest of the Imperium, and would look to their own recruitment and training, bound by ancient oath and intervening wherever they saw fit, but no longer in overall command of the Imperium's armies or its government. There was resistance to this. While some Primarchs agreed with the plans, some were extremely reticent. Liman Russ of the Space Wolves and Rogel Dawn of the Imperial Fists initially flat out refused to break up their legions. Speaking much later, Nasir Amit of the Flesh Terrors all but thought of Gilliman as a traitor.
That would make sense for the Space Wolves, because they're supposed to stay together so that their combined force can wipe out every other legion. So that would make sense for him to not want to do it.
For what he'd done. Gilliman the Butcher. With law and edict, Gilliman ripped the heart from the legions. Even his own sons were not spared his treachery. Where Horus had sought to use a hammer blow, Gilliman used a duelist's blade. In the end, the result was the same. Brother became cousin, cousin became exile. But over time, and with the prospect of the debate potentially dissolving into another civil war, one that the Imperium could not really afford, both of those Primarchs relented, and 7 years after the end of the Horus Heresy, in 021 M31, the second founding was officially written into Imperial law, and the legions ceased to exist. In each case, one of the new chapters formed retained the heraldry, homeworld, and symbols of the original legion. So 1,000 of the old Ultramarines Legion stayed on as the Ultramarines chapter, these chapters becoming known as the progenitor chapters. The rest took on new names, symbols, and heraldry, becoming known as the successor chapters. Actually, successor chapters is one of those terms that's used a few different ways in 40k. Sometimes it only refers to the chapters created in this second founding, and then sometimes it refers to any chapter who isn't one of the 9 progenitors. How the legions were broken down varied. In some cases, the new successor chapters were simply existing divisions of the old Legion, such as when the Ultramarines 22nd chapter became the Nemesis chapter. In some cases, they were founded in honor of a Legion hero, given command of the new force because of particular actions during the heresy. And in some, they were formed from legionnaires who thought alike, such as with the Fists Exemplar, formed from those Imperial Fists who most supported the split. Chapters might even have been founded as a way of redesignating rogue Astartes elements, the Black Shield formations active during the Heresy War. Many of these new chapters would be Codex compliant, following the organizational doctrines laid out in this new Codex Astartes, in some cases as if it was a holy document.
And you have, and as a gamer, as a player, you now understand that this allows players to choose their favorite Legion and make a chapter for themselves to really role play it and really get into it. So that's very this extends to the gaming aspect, allowing people to really connect with the lore on their own level and make it a way they want to. So I understand that from a gaming perspective too. That's just good. It's creating a good relationship with your customer and your fans.
And some were less so, either following the idiosyncratic organization of their original Legion or just disregarding the Codex altogether. Some controls were placed on these new chapters. Each was required to regularly submit a tithe of their gene seed to the Adeptus Mechanicus on Mars so that it could be tested for purity and any defects could be monitored. And also to maintain a reserve in case a chapter needed to be rebuilt after taking heavy losses, or to form the basis for further foundings. Many new chapters came into existence with this in the early years of M31, but unfortunately, we don't exactly know how many. In the 10,000 years since the second founding, full records, if they ever even existed, have been lost. The Apocrypha of Scaros is the oldest known example of the Codex Astartes, and that lists various chapters created during the second founding, including saying that 23 were created from the former Ultramarines Legion, though it doesn't actually list them all, and in the current year only about 18 can be traced back to then. The Apocrypha of Davio was a 33rd millennium attempt to recreate that original list, but it was never completed, and as such there's no official record in the Imperium of exactly which ones were created then. Over the intervening 10 millennia, many chapters have lost their official records in invasions and attacks, or have fallen out with their forebears and forsworn any connection to them, or have even created for themselves noble heritages that may not actually be true. So while I'm now going to go through each Legion, the known chapters they created, and what those chapters became known for, bear in mind that since no record is ever complete, there might be more ones out there, either still active or
which allows for gamers to make their own chapters for their armies,
or long since destroyed that were founded at the same time. As I said, the vast majority of chapters created were from the Ultramarines Legion, so let's leave them till last. At the time of the second founding, the Dark Angels Legion had had an eventful few years. In the immediate aftermath of the heresy, the Dark Angels had returned to their homeworld, Caliban, to find that its defenders, under Luther, had declared themselves independent from the Imperium, tainted by the mysterious thing at the heart of the planet. Their Primarch, Lionel Johnson, had responded by destroying the planet and descending to its remains to fight Luther, and all this had resulted in the traitors, known as the Fallen, being scattered through the warp, and the Primarch disappearing, rumoured to be slumbering in the depths of the Rock, the old Legion fortress and the only surviving fragment of the planet. The remaining leaders of the Dark Angels were terrified of this secret getting out, and the Legion being declared traitors as a whole, so they implemented reforms to their Legion, the cementing of the position of the inner circle as the top level of Legion command, the only Astartes allowed to know the truth, the dedication of the Dark Angels to the hunt, searching for the Fallen wherever they might appear as a matter of utmost priority, and the positioning of the Raven Wing as their main tool of the hunt. When the decree came for the breaking down of the legions into chapters, the Dark Angels acquiesced, unwilling to raise the suspicions of the Imperium. The successor chapters of the Dark Angels, known amongst themselves as the Unforgiven, all inherited these oaths and practices, and together these Unforgiven chapters often act more like the Legion of old, generally responding favorably to requests from the Grand Master of the Dark Angels chapter and coordinating their hunt for the fallen. There are 3 officially recorded Dark Angel successors in the Apocrypha of Davio: the Angels of Vengeance, the Angels of Absolution, and the Angels of Redemption.
I like to
But
scrub
there are a
that
number of others mentioned that might well be lost second founding successors for various reasons. The Angels of Redemption were a variant of the Dark Angels standard scheme, halved in dark green and bone with a winged skull as their symbol. They're noted as being particularly zealous in their dedication to the hunt. They're famed across the galaxy as defenders of the Imperium, almost as much as their progenitors, but they're also quick to quit a war zone if a hint of the fallen emerges, which has raised inquisitorial suspicion in the past. Instead of maintaining a Deathwing and a Ravenwing company, their first 2 companies are both arranged as Ravenwing. The Angels of Vengeance adopted the older Dark Angel scheme of black and red, their symbol a hooded winged skull. Much like the original First Legion before the discovery of Lionel Johnson, they're noted as being dedicated to the destruction of the Imperium's enemies to the point of obsession, accepting high casualties rather than retreating, committing themselves to suicidal attacks. The Angels of Vengeance are so single-minded, they've almost been wiped out on multiple occasions. They conform to the standard Dark Angels company structure, though their first and second companies are known as the Dreadwing and Raptorwing, respectively. The Angels of Absolution wear completely bone armor, their symbol a single wing and skull, and stand out as the only Unforgiven chapter who refuse to use that term. Though they participate in the hunt for the fallen, they don't see it as an act of redemption. They believe that they're already redeemed by their actions and any shame has been wiped away, which produces some tension when acting in concert with other Unforgiven chapters. They're one of the few non-fleet-based chapters in the Unforgiven, operating from the world of All Hallow. So those are the official 3, but then we have muddled records about a few more. The Lion's Sable are listed in some records as being a Dark Angel successor, but no images of their color scheme or armor remain. It's only noted that they were destroyed while on the hunt for the fallen Angel's cipher, and their recruiting world of Nachtwald passed to the Angels of Vengeance. The Angels of Vigilance are a Space Marine chapter of officially unknown lineage, their armor bright yellow and their symbol a winged crucible and flame, with mixed records indicating that they were formed either in the 25th founding or during the second founding. However, their chapter organization is extremely similar to those of the Unforgiven chapters, and their fortress monastery is an orbital dock stationed around the world of Periviglium, a planet that was subjugated by the Dark Angels Legion shortly after the heresy, who decreed that a contingent of that legion should remain on the planet forever to ensure they never strayed again from the rule of the Imperium. So it seems likely that they're a Dark Angel successor, even if they don't know it anymore. The Consecrators are known as a Dark Angel successor, one of the Unforgiven, but they're from an unknown founding. They wear the original scheme of the First Legion, black and red, but otherwise little's known about them. They have no Imperial records before the start of the 40th millennium. They appear without warning, and they give away very little of their organization. However, their chapter symbol is the flame in a crucible, almost identical to the old Legion formation of the Firewing, the First Legion's mysterious covert ops specialists. And their armory does seem to include a huge number of sacred relics, ancient marks of power armor, large numbers of armored vehicles of rare patterns, almost as if they inherited all the oldest and most revered arms of the original Legion. And then finally, the Star Phantoms are another chapter with an unknown heritage, and though official records have them as part of the 23rd Sentinel founding in the 38th millennium, there are also records of the Star Phantoms operating shortly after the heresy alongside the Flesh Tearers. The Star Phantoms are a brutal chapter who focus on heavy firepower and the complete annihilation of their enemies, even if that results in friendly casualties. Their organization is Codex compliant, apart from featuring a larger number of Devastator squads per company than usual. But their tactics have seen them investigated multiple times and saw them described by Lord Solar Macarius as unsuitable for the close support of other Imperial units. Both the Star Phantoms and the Dark Angels have vehemently explicitly denied any link, though their chapter symbol is a mirror of the old First Legion formation of the Dreadwing, a skull set in an hourglass, and their tactics, the total annihilation of their enemies, was the goal of that formation back in the Crusade era. So, as always, the Dark Angels are a bit suspicious. 3 official successors of the Second Founding, plus 1 destroyed and covered up, and 3 more chapters with differing records, but who seem to line up, especially the 2 who could just be old Legion formations that were hived off from the whole in the wake of the reorganization. The Iron Hands were a much simpler prospect. Their Primarch, Ferrus Manus, was the first to be killed at the outset of the heresy, and the remainder of the Legion was fractured without his command, breaking down into hundreds of independent armies and companies and fighting a guerrilla war against the traitor forces. The Iron Hands often formed the core of the Shattered Legions, formations with mixed Legion provenance who harried Horus's forces as they tried to make their way to Terra. By the end of the heresy, the remaining Iron Hands, who returned to their homeworld of Medusa, elected a clan council to rule it in the future, and they were initially very resistant to splitting the Legion again, until Gilliman gifted them the skull of Ferrus Manus, and then apparently they were fine with it all. The Iron Hands were only reorganized into 3.
It's like, here, have the skull of your daddy. And you can put it on a pedestal and worship it. I'll pacify you with the skull of dad. Here you go. Oh, great. We're happy now.
Chapters, the Iron Hands themselves, and 2 noted successors, the Brazen Claws and the Red Talons. The Brazen Claws wear a quartered scheme of blue and dark red with their symbol, confusingly, a red talon. They share many of the beliefs of their parent legion, including a complete lack of remorse and a dedication to improving their bodies through cybernetic enhancement. They were originally assigned to the world of Talos 4, but this was destroyed much later during the spread of the Great Rift, leaving them as a fleet-based chapter. The Red Talons have a much more distinctive history, as they predate the Second Founding. The Red Talons are formed from the remnants of the old Iron Hands Legion's clan Morrigal, which was led by the Terran captain Ortek Moore. Moore was an extremely volatile commander, and he and his Primarch never really got on, which led to his company operating semi-independently throughout the Crusade and becoming something of a sink for outcasts and the more unstable elements of the Legion. Moore led his company and considerable allied forces in a horrific campaign of vengeance behind traitor lines, targeting traitor allied worlds from the bridge of his flagship, the Red Talon, destroying the densely packed world of Gethsemane with dirty atomics and obliterating the traitor mining world of Saria Major with an orbital bombardment that left the air poisoned, millions choking to death in their wake. After the heresy was over, it was a relatively simple matter to allow Clan Morrigal to retain their independence as a new chapter, now renamed the Red Talons and adopting Ortek Moore's clan sigil of a red talon on a black field as their new heraldry. The Space Wolves had an interesting response to the creation of the Codex Astartes. Liman Russ, Primarch of the Space Wolves, was initially reluctant to change anything about his legion, refusing to accede to demands from his brother, until, as mentioned, the situation seemed likely to deteriorate into war. At this point, he relented. First, by proposing that the Space Wolves' grand companies be given more independence, in effect operating as successors, but in truth just allowing the Space Wolves to retain a much greater size. And second, with the creation of a single true successor chapter, the Wolf Brothers. The Wolf Brothers were to be a direct copy of the Space Wolves and received half of everything they had. Their fleet, warriors, armor, and weapons were split down the middle, and they were settled on the ice world of Cariol under the command of Bear Arjak Grimason. They were originally intended to be the first of a line of Space Wolf successors known as the Sons of Rust that would completely encircle the Eye of Terror, but things went wrong soon after. Away from the stabilizing influence of the people of Fenris, their Canis Helix devolved, and the curse of the Wolfen, amongst other worse mutations, became extremely common amongst the Battle Brothers. Shortly after their formation, the chapter had to be disbanded by the Inquisition, though it's known that many of the cursed Wolf Brothers escaped into the Eye of Terror, and some have occasionally been seen serving with Chaos warbands in the years since. No other Space Wolf successors would be attempted until the Ultima founding. The Imperial Fists were the other major opponents of the split. As mentioned, Rogel Dorn was vehemently against the splitting down of the legions, and he only relented after the Ultramarines rescued his forces from the disastrous Iron Cage incident during the Scouring. Seeking to avoid more internal strife, the Imperial Fist Legion was split down into a number of chapters, often based on internal divides within the 7th Legion itself. Yet, like the Dark Angels, they retained a backup plan in the form of the Last War Protocol, an agreement to reform as a legion in case of threat to Terra. And the successor chapters of the Fists continue to honor the Feast of Blades, a centennial dueling competition between successors designed to ensure good relations amongst the Line of Dawn. The most famous successors of the Imperial Fists are the Black Templars.
That makes sense. The Fists rejection makes sense because they are the defenders of Terra, the defenders of the palace. So of course to them, breaking down their numbers would seem a bad idea. But and of course the backup plan, okay, yes, let's all restore ourselves if we need to so that we can be the wall that protects Terra.
Originally led by the Imperial Fist's first captain Sigismund and formed from the remains of the Templar Brethren. The Templar Brethren were an elite order of the Imperial Fists, formed of its most skilled bladesmen and officially dedicated to guarding the Temple of Oaths aboard the Imperial Fist's flagship, the Phalanx. Their leader was Sigismund, one of the finest duelists in the Imperium, but through the heresy, he also became one of the few devout space marines, venerating the Emperor as a god, which caused considerable friction with his Primarch, who felt in some ways that he could no longer trust his most valued captain. During the siege of the palace, he was named the first Emperor's Champion, armed with the Black Sword, and conducted a campaign outside the walls to decapitate traitor forces. When the Imperial Fists were then split, Sigismund became the new master of the Black Templars, who adopted his personal heraldry of black and white as their scheme and retained the Templar Cross as their symbol. The Black Templars are, however, very much not Codex compliant. A fanatical chapter of religious zealots, the Templars are fleet-based, maintain numerous independent crusades across the galaxy, and are suspected to be far, far larger than a standard Codex compliant chapter would usually be allowed to be. The Crimson Fists were then the opposite. Formed from the newest recruits to the 7th Legion, they were commanded by a captain of the 405th Company, Alexis Pollux, a rising star in the Legion and a master of void warfare. Pollux, who was known back then as the Crimson Fist, was a massive Astartes armed with a signature giant power fist, and who had fought in the heresy at the Battle of Phal and commanded Imperial Fist forces on Sotha in Ultramar. The Crimson Fists have blue armor with the left gauntlet painted red, and their symbol is a red variant of the standard Imperial Fists one. They were fleet-based until the late 40th millennium when they took custodianship of Rindsworld. The Fists Exemplar were another mirror to the Templars, this time being formed from those in the Imperial Fists who most supported the introduction of the Codex Astartes. Their first chapter master, Auriax Dantalion, was a captain of the Imperial Fists who'd originally counseled Dawn to agree to the split, which Dawn then long refused. When Dawn finally gave in, he remembered Dantalion and gave him command of a new chapter named the Fists Exemplar, since its members were exemplars of the new ways of the Imperium. Their armor was originally completely unadorned grey ceramite without any chapter symbol. The Fist Exemplar were intended to be based on an orbital station, the Alcazar Astra, but as it was being towed into its new position near a warp storm called the Rubricante Flux, it was hit by an eruption of warp energy and was forced to make planetfall on Idolica, which would become their new homeworld. Idolica would later be invaded and destroyed in M32 during the War of the Beast, and the chapter disbanded by its final chapter master, Maximus Thane, after his subordinate captain attempted to ally with a force of Iron Warriors to hold back the Orcs. Maximus Thane would go on to become a chapter master of the reformed Imperial Fists after the war, but the story of the Fists Exemplar ends there. The Excoriators were formed by the Imperial Fist captain Demetrius Catafalque, who was instrumental in holding the walls of Terra. Their heraldry is bone white, and their symbol a fist holding onto two thunderbolts, and they're based on the world of Escara in the Segmentum Obscurus. This proximity to the Eye of Terror has made them extremely practical. Rather than hold the line in the face of overwhelming odds like many other Imperial Fist successors, their priority was always to survive, to cause as much damage as possible while minimizing their own losses. However, they do embody a lesser-known belief of the Sons of Dawn, which is the obsession with pain and the endurance of pain. In the Excoriators, ritual mortification and penitence is an obsession. Their chapter practicing various rites centered around scarring and ritual endurance, and this even extends to their war gear. Damaged armor is only repaired to the point of functionality, the mark left for all to see, and tagged with the date and location of the damage. Within the chapter, marked and pitted armor is seen as a sign of veteran status. These beliefs have led to some deviation from the Codex in terms of their rank system, but the Corpus Captains, Scourges, Whips, and Santiarchs of the chapter preside over a strong and unique chapter cult that reviles Emperor worship and the teachers of the Ecclesiarchy, and continues to venerate their Primarch Dawn through ritual pain and suffering instead. The Soul Drinkers were a second founding chapter of the Imperial Fists, their armor purple and bone, and their symbol a chalice with laurel wreaths. Fleet-based, they were originally formed from the Imperial Fist's remaining void-capable shock attack elements. They were extant until the 41st millennium, when a brutal civil war led by their chief librarian turned new chapter master turned giant half-spider thing, it's a long story, meant that the chapter were declared renegade and all but wiped out. The name and color scheme, though, was reused during the Ultima founding for a new Primaris chapter. The Iron Knights are a potential second founding chapter. It's unclear if they're second or third founding, and their homeworld is variously listed as Bracantia or Saharis. In either case, they're a relatively small chapter of specialized siege breakers, noted for their uncommonly compassionate approach to regular Imperial civilians, and the fact that their dueling champions have won the Feast of Blades twice in consecutive events. The Iron Knights wear gunmetal grey power armor. And then, like the Dark Angels, we have a few weird ones. The Silver Guard are of an unknown gene line but heavily rumored to be Imperial Fists in origin, and stated in some records to date from the second founding. They wear purple and silver armor, and their symbol is a skull surrounded by 3 blades. They were a major presence.
It really is fascinating how, at least to me, how everything seems in order, and then suddenly you get a splinter off, like, oh, we don't know where these guys came from. We don't know where these guys came from. We don't know who they are. We think we know, but we don't really know. So that's fascinating to me right there. I find that fascinating about that. Very fascinating. I don't know about purple as a color, though. I don't know.
About World campaign. And finally, the Executioners were formed by the Lord Seneschal of the Imperial Fist's first assault corps, Fafnir Ran. Ran fought through the Siege of Terra with twin axes that became his personal heraldry, and then the heraldry of this new chapter, whose armor is silver with yellow details. They're known as a brutal chapter based on the twin worlds of Stygia Aquilon, and formed with the stated aim of beheading the enemies of the Imperium. The chapter is largely Codex compliant, but with more than the standard number of chaplains, who the Executioners refer to as Death Speakers, and their chapter master is named the High Executioner. But while all of this is a classic second founding chapter origin story, a great hero of the original Legion taking his heraldry and forming a new chapter around it in his name, they're actually from the third founding, about a century later, so Fafnir Ran must have stayed in Imperial Fist for a little bit longer. Another chapter with a close-knit band of successors was the Blood Angels, who'd also been through a lot at the end of the heresy. Their Primarch, Sanguinius, was killed by Horus, and this led to an increased incidence of 2 gene seed flaws the Blood Angels suffered from and largely wanted to keep a secret. The Red Thirst, the desire to drink blood, and the Black Rage, which afflicted more and more of the Legion since the death of Sanguinius. Those suffering from the Black Rage lost all sanity and reason and were assigned to the Death Company to seek their end.
Which we learned about.
And these twin curses and the formation of the Death Company was passed down to all their successor chapters. Despite these flaws and their depleted numbers at the end of the Siege of Terra, the Blood Angels were split down into a surprising number of second founding successors. The Flesh Terrors were formed by the Blood Angels Dominion Nasir Amit, also known as the Flesh Terror. Amit was an exceptionally brutal Blood Angels officer, one of the original Terran members of the Legion before they were reunited with Sanguinius, and as such, he was the few Blood Angels who remained from its previous incarnation as the Revenant Legion, a legion of flesh eaters and blood drinkers. Amit's new chapter, The Flesh Tearers, took the brutal death world of Cretaceous as their home and quickly gained a reputation for shocking violence and a lack of control, barely able to control their gene flaws and frequently turning their bloodlust on allied Imperial forces or losing vast numbers of warriors to suicidal rages. They were often far below strength, frequently placed under inquisitorial investigation, and it wasn't uncommon for allied Imperial forces to refuse to fight alongside them.
Yeah,
the Flesh Tearers
go
wear
with them.
dark red armor with black pauldrons, and their symbol is a spinning saw blade with a blood drop in the center. The Angels Sanguine, whose armor is halved red and black and symbol the winged skull, that will also become a theme, were reportedly formed from those of the Legion
I gotta say, I'm not a fan of the half and half type of coloring stuff. I don't like that. It's a little jarring to me in any kind of thing. I like either blend them or don't blend them.
The most pure and faithful to the image of their Primarch, and they've had a long and glorious history in the service of the Imperium. However, their gene seed has degraded slightly further over the years. Their aspirants, recruited from their homeworld of Ansyria, must have genetic makeup similar to the people of Baal, the homeworld of the Blood Angels, and the gene degradation has resulted in their battle brothers having unusually red skin. The Angels Sanguine are often loath to reveal their faces, going helmeted at all times when around other Imperial forces, or hiding their features in deep hoods. The Blood Drinkers also suffer from gene seed flaws, this time a mutation of the homophagia, which results in them having an even more pronounced desire for blood than the rest of the line of Sanguinius. A Codex-compliant chapter, the Blood Drinkers have a smaller than normal death company and relatively little incidence of the Black Rage, but this is balanced by a far greater incidence of the Red Thirst, which the chapter often gives into and has led to a series of dark blood-drinking rituals practiced by the chapter cult. The Blood Drinkers' armor is entirely red, their symbol a chalice and blood drop. The Angels Encarmine are a crusading chapter described as one of the most active in the Imperium, though they can also be one of the more aloof chapters to deal with. Their armor is red with black details and their symbol the winged blood drop, though in deviation from the norm, their Sanguinary Guard and Death Company both go to battle in white armor. The Angels in Carmine are often under strength as a result of their constant campaigning, but their Death Company is noted to always be quite large, which implies a very high rate of the Black Rage. The Angels Vermilion are then the opposite, a secretive and isolationist chapter who shun contact with other Blood Angels' successors. Based on the world of Coronal, the Angels Vermilion were originally the Blood Angels Legion's 9th chapter, who captured and reconditioned a line cruiser belonging to the Night Lords and used it as their flagship during the Scouring. The Angels Vermilion have a reason to be secretive, though. To keep the Red Thirst at bay, they've developed particularly gruesome rituals based around the sacrifice of loyal humans designed to get them a regular supply of fresh blood, to a degree that would see them hunted down by the rest of the Blood Angels' successors if the truth ever got out. The Angels Vermilion have another bat-winged blood drop with a centered skull as their symbol, and their armor is obviously vermilion. The Sons of Sanguinius are a lesser-known chapter created from the remains of the Blood Angels' 6th Company in the aftermath of the heresy, and wear terracotta red armor with black shoulder pads, their symbol an angel-winged chalice. Despite following the same structures as the rest of the Blood Angels' successors, they seem to have achieved a remarkable level of control over the floor, and as such they have no Death Company. They also consider the use of psychers to be inherently chaotic and have no librarius, and their organization is geared towards swift assault. They lack large numbers of Terminator suits or heavy weapons. And then finally, there is of course another outlier. The Charnel Guard are a fleet-based chapter that seem to possess a large amount of the original Legion's relic war gear, including Fire Raptor gunships and Fell Blade tanks. They were founded by Dominion Zephon in the aftermath of the heresy, the Bringer of Sorrow, who was a commander of the Legion's destroyer elements, and they went on to serve briefly in the Maelstrom Warders before the Badab War. However, like the Executioners, despite this being a classic second founding origin story, it seems Zephon stayed with his parent chapter a bit longer than most, as the Charnel Guard are actually from the 3rd founding. The Raven Guard were one of the legions most reduced by the Horus Heresy, numbering only a
I'm interested to see
few
where the Raven
thousand
Guard
warriors
goes.
at the end of the war, but their Primarch, Korax, was broadly in favor of the Reformation, and the Raven Guard were broken down into 4 known chapters: the Raven Guard themselves, the Black Guard, the Raptors, and the Revilers. The Black Guard, confusingly wearing armor of white with a black helmet and pauldrons, were formed from the remains of the Shadow Wardens, the Legion honor guard to the Primarch. Their first chapter master, Gareth Arendi, was the commander of the Shadow Wardens, honored with his command after coming to the aid of Korax on the prison world of Karandiru. The Black Guard are known for overwhelming firepower, deploying concealed artillery and then awaiting the perfect moment to strike. Apparently, overkill and half measures aren't concepts they understand. The Raptors are rumored to be the descendants of a company of Raven Guard initiates deployed in harrying operations during the Scouring, and then, far from home, reorganized into their own chapter during the Second Founding. Like their progenitors, they're masters of ambush and infiltration, but in the Raptors, this takes the form of long-range sniper deployments, guerrilla warfare, and frequent use of camouflage, something very uncommon for Space Marines. They were originally a fleet-based chapter before being assigned to a number of homeworlds. Their current base of operations, Tarrangast, is kept a secret lest they lose another one. Their armor is generally a green drab, and their symbol the raptor's head, but they've been seen in numerous other schemes, from tundra patterns to this brilliant yellow and blue scheme that might be a misidentification by some Imperial scribe back in the 80s. And finally, the Revilers wear grey power armor, and their symbol is the lightning bolt and skull. They were initially drawn from the more veteran elements of the Old Legion, and they stick to the Raven Guard tested tactics of hit and run and ambush warfare, preferring fast assault vehicles. They initially led campaigns of conquest against traitor Space Marine forces, particularly the Alpha Legion, engaging in a shadow war across the millennia. The White Scars were, again, broadly in favour of Guilliman's reforms. The White Scars Legion had originated as a legion of independent pioneer companies, and its Khans were used to operating on their own. They were never the biggest legion, but after holding the walls during the Siege of Terror, they'd become pretty small. There are only 4 recorded successor chapters of the White Scars created during the Second Founding, though not a lot is actually written about any of them. The Storm Lords adhere to many of the same combat doctrines as their parent chapter, though their markings are a lot more Codex compliant. For some reason, the passage of time has led to quite a rivalry between the Storm Lords and their progenitors, the White Scars. The two often compete for battle honours, and to see who can outdo the other. The Storm Lords wear a split red and white scheme, and their chapter symbol is a skull surrounded by 3 lightning bolts. The Marauders livery is yellow with black trim, and their symbol a flaming sword. They're noted as an isolationist chapter with a preference for heavy firepower and praised for their marksmanship. Little else is known. The Rampagers continue the ancient White Scars practice of ritual facial scarring, apparently to a more extreme degree than the scars themselves. Their symbol is a white hand grasping a lightning bolt. They're also one of the successors noted as having fought alongside the White Scars shortly after the Second Founding, pacifying the Yasan sector under Jagatai Khan as the Wars of the Scouring continued. And also involved in that campaign were the Destroyers, the final White Scars successor here, who are famed for their eagerness to close to battle and their aggressive and savage style of warfare. Their armor is black with yellow pauldrons and helmet, and their symbol is a black skull framed by lightning bolts. Before we get into the largest of the old legions, we also need to mention the smallest. The Salamanders were one of the legions almost completely wiped out near the very start of the heresy, during the drop site massacre on Istvan V, and they never recovered. By the end of the heresy, after fighting in the Shattered Legions and resurrecting their Primarch Vulcan, there were only about 700 Salamanders left, barely enough to continue as just one chapter, though successor chapters would be created in time. The Apocrypha lists no known Second Founding successors of the Salamanders. And then, finally, we have the Ultramarines. The 13th Legion were always one of the biggest legions. Their massive recruitment area of Ultramar and their logistical genius had always kept them well supplied in terms of recruits, and though they suffered heavily at the start of the heresy, the Battle of Calth taking a heavy toll, they were then isolated from the majority of the war by the Ruin Storm, a massive warp storm designed to keep the largest loyalist legions trapped on the eastern fringe and unable to intervene. By the time the heresy was over, the Legion were almost back to full strength, and so during the second founding, the Ultramarines were the basis for the vast majority of chapters as the old Legion was broken down. Because of this, and because of the legacy of their Primarch, the Ultramarines and their successors are sometimes known as the Primogenitor chapters. The Apocrypha of Scaros claims that the Ultramarines sired 23 successors, though we only have 18 here, and given their numbers, it's likely there are some more unrecorded somewhere. The Aurora chapter formed from the Ultramarines' fourth chapter, already known as the Aurorans. They were a chapter focused on armored assault, possessing 5 times as many armored vehicles as most other chapters, and they fought on Calth during the initial attack, and alongside the Imperial Fists at Cathonia during the Scouring. As an independent chapter, they remained well known for their coordinated armored assaults, and they maintained significant chapter forges on their homeworld of Firestorm. Their armor is green, which was the color of the 4th chapter veterans in the Legion days, and their old honor marking of the Auroran ribbon was repurposed as their new chapter symbol. The Black Consuls were founded by Arios Kordos, an Astartes of the Ultramarines' 75th chapter, who earned the name Bane of Lorgar after leading his new chapter on a campaign against the Word Bearers in
if
the
I'm not
All-Star
saying much,
system.
guys,
I'm
I'm trying to absorb it all. And what's the commentary? This is just pure lore dump right here, outside of small thoughts.
Are a crusading chapter and close confidants of the Master of the Ultramarines on Macragge, though during the 40th and 41st millennium, they were slowly scattered. First when their star fort was destroyed by Drakari, and then when much of their strength was annihilated by the Iron Warriors during the Siege of Goddenhive. They wear black armor, and their symbol is a white eagle's head. The White Consul's color scheme is the inverse of their progenitors, white armor with blue detail, their symbol a blue eagle's head. Like the Black Consuls, they were one of the Astartes Prices chapters, assigned to guard the Eye of Terror, and as a matter of course, they maintained 2 chapter masters, one to fortify their homeworld of Sabatine, while the other was on crusade around the Eye. The White Consuls also take the teachings of Guilliman seriously in terms of governance. Their officers oversaw the administration of several nearby worlds. However, with the spread of the Great Rift, their homeworld was lost to the forces of Nurgle. And the Viridian Consuls were presumably the same as those last 2, but green, though records are sparse, since after joining a penitent crusade into the Eye of Terror, they were corrupted to chaos, becoming a chaos warband known as the Broken. The Doom Eagles are a chapter that specialize in jump pack assault. Their armor silver with red detailing, and their symbol a skull-headed eagle. But unlike the usual noble bearing of the Ultramarines, the chapter are quite morbid due to the influence of their founder, Tullian Aquila, a captain of the 13th Legion who lived through the wasteland of the War for Calth. To the Doom Eagles, they're already dead, and their rites and rituals focus on channeling that fatalism towards a sense of duty. Their lack of inhibitions and doubts allowing them to serve the citizens of the Imperium as much as possible before their inevitable demise. The Eagle Warriors were formed from the Old Legion's 20th chapter, also known as the Eagles, who were specialists in void combat. Again, they fought in the Battle of Calth, and the void veterans of the chapter were reconstituted into an independent chapter after the war. The Eagle Warriors remain a fleet-based chapter, patrolling the worlds of the Eastern Fringe, protecting the area occupied by old Ultramar and many of the worlds originally brought into compliance by Guilliman. They wear a halved blue and white scheme. Their symbol is a blue eagle's wing. The Genesis chapter are based on the planet of Newfound on the Eastern Fringe, close to the original domains of the Ultramarines, and apart from their armor, which is painted red with yellow detailing, they're considered to be one of the closest doctrinally to their progenitors. In fact, it's often stated that they were the first of the successor chapters to be created, wresting their homeworld from word-bearer control in their very first battle. The Genesis chapter cleave extremely close to the Codex Astartes, allowing no deviation however slight. They regularly answer the call of Macragge, and their chapter maintain a standing auxiliary force of armed chapter serfs known as the Newfound Expeditionary Auxilia, in imitation of the famed Ultramar Auxilia. The Inceptors wear a scheme of green and gold, their symbol a stylized eye with the original Legion symbol in the center, but records of them in the second founding are very scarce. Their actions unrecorded until millennia later when they fought in the Macarian Wars, and they were later almost wiped out by the Minotaurs chapter after they got into a protracted and extremely costly honor duel with the Doom Warriors chapter. The Iron Snakes are one of the less Codex adherence chapters to come from the 13th Legion. Formed by the Ultramarines 6th Company Captain Saw Damocles, the Iron Snakes are based on the moon of Charybdis around the icy ocean planet of Ithaca, and are charged with the protection of an area of space known as the Reef Star.
I gotta say that just reminds me of something I constantly think about: the constant mythological name drops on planets or systems or regions. It's appreciated. I think that's the best way to put it. I appreciate it, and if you understand Greek mythology and all these kind of things or other mythologies, it does ring true, and it shows a connection to mythology, a reverence almost, I think, which I appreciate.
The chapter are highly independent, organized into a series of squads rather than companies, each squad named after a hero of the chapter, looking to its own recruitment and training, its sergeant able to commit his squad to whichever conflict arises as he sees fit. The Iron Snakes are even known to send single Astartes to deal with Xenos threats, such as the wide area they're required to cover. The Iron Snakes are veterans of years of conflict against the local Xenos like Drakari and the Orcs, and also committed significant forces to the Sabbat Worlds Crusade. Their armor is silver with white pauldrons bearing the double-looped serpent that was once the personal heraldry of Saw Damocles. The Libators are one of the more brutal of the Ultramarine successors. Clad in yellow ceramite, their chapter symbol is a chalice with an ultraglyph in the center, and this symbol and their name come from their practice of offering the blood of their enemies as a sacrifice to Guilliman and to the Emperor. The Libators considered the blood of captured enemy champions to be the most worthy source of this offering, which has led to censure from various imperial authorities in the past. The Mortifactors are formed by an Ultramarines officer known as Sasebo Tezuka, who was drawn by the Imperial Tarot to site the chapter's new fortress monastery in orbit around the feral world of Posel. Outwardly, the chapter is a strict adherent of the Codex Astartes, but its beliefs and ritual practices have since become heavily influenced by the tribal beliefs on the planet below. Its warriors are known to enter a meditative trance to divine where best to fight their next battle, and they're rumored to drink the blood and eat the flesh of their enemies. They also take the skulls of their enemies as trophies, and the chapter's orbiting fortress monastery is lined with the preserved skulls of thousands of previous battle brothers, all of which makes them distrusted allies to many of the other Ultramarine successors. Their armor is bone and black, and their symbol, appropriately, is a skull. The Nemesis chapter is another chapter formed from a pre-existing Legion culture. The 22nd chapter of the Ultramarines were of mostly Terran origin and contain many of the Legion's destroyer squads, squads armed for campaigns of Exterminatus. They'd taken the name Nemesis long before the Legion's rediscovery of Guilliman, and they were always a bit of a pariah within the Legion after that. Guilliman was never a fan of the specific tactics of destroyer units. At the end of the war, the chapter became independent. Its new chapter master, Ilion Iasus, had them renamed officially to Nemesis, and their colors changed to green, but their symbol was kept the same, a white skull. They remain specialists in Exterminatus actions. The Nova Marines are one of the most famous successors of the 13th Legion. Founded by the Ultramarines captain Lucretius Corvo, the Nova Marines are strict adherents to the words of Guilliman and the Codex Astartes, and proponents of the monodominant philosophy, the belief in mankind's inherent superiority over all other life.
Manifest destiny.
Their armory is well maintained, consisting of a full company's worth of Terminator plate and significant armored assets. Though they maintain a large and expansive fleet, they're actually based on the feral world of Honorium at the northernmost point of the Ultima Segmentum. But unlike, say, the Mortifactors, the tribal practices of their new recruits are dispensed with in training, replaced by a culture similar to the one you'd find in a city on the crag. The only practice that remains is the Nova Marines' tradition of tattooing their skin with a record of their deeds, seen as a way of armoring the soul, and their librarians are noted to adopt some non-standard practices because of this. The Nova Marines are also common contributors contributors to the Death Watch and maintain a permanent core of returned Death Watch veterans. The Nova Marines wear the blue and bone quartered heraldry of their founder, Corvo. Their symbol is a skull in a 12-pointed star. The Obsidian Glaives were a Codex-adherent chapter based on the world of Obstria. Notably, their chapter teachings considered the duty of service as a Space Marine to be a form of penance, a punishment inflicted on the criminals they took as aspirants from nearby worlds. Obstria itself was uninhabitable, radioactive to the point where it could damage Astartes' war gear if not maintained properly, and its surface was often used as training for aspirants to the chapter. The chapter wore black and bone armor, but few records remain since they were destroyed by the red
which I can tell because you didn't give us any imagery.
in the late 41st millennium. The Patriarchs of Elixis are another Codex-compliant chapter who put a strong emphasis on skilled and tactical defense of Imperial worlds and are noted for their skilled blade work, but that's about all we have. The armor is red and bone, and their symbol is a skull crowned with the original Legion symbol. And the Silver Eagles are another chapter with very little written record, armored in silver power armor with blue pauldrons and an Imperial Aquila as their symbol. And finally, we have the Silver Skulls. The Silver Skulls are a relatively Codex-compliant chapter, originally assigned to the planet of Lyria, but after the world was infected by the forces of Nurgle in M33, they were reassigned to the feral world of Varsavia. The Silver Skulls retain all Astartes' specialities, but have a considerable focus in siege warfare. Their 9th company designated a full siege company. They're known as being relentless, efficient, and extremely pragmatic and brutal in close assault. Like many other chapters, their homeworld has slowly influenced their beliefs. Their librarians are known as prognosticars, who study the warp to divine where best the chapter should fight, and like the Mortifactors, the Silver Skulls are headhunters. After the battle, the skulls of particularly notable enemies are flensed and coated in silver as trophies of battle. The Silver Skulls are subject to an unusual amount of scrutiny over their origin, their gene seed records classified by the Inquisition for many years, until, with the return of the Primarch, Guilliman confirmed that they were definitely 100% Ultramarines and definitely not anything else. Those are all the second founding successors with recorded progenitors, but there are other chapters that can chart their claim back to the second founding, though their gene seed origin has long been lost. Few records exist for chapters like the Yellow Jackets, Scar Lords, or Purple Stars, but some other specialist chapters are regularly grouped in with the second founding. The Red Hunters are a chapter of unknown origin who were founded originally to hunt down stragglers from the traitor legions and who are known to regularly put themselves under the command of the Inquisition. Red Hunters detachments frequently fight in inquisitorial task forces and provide honor guards for Inquisitor lords, which has led to the Astartes that make up the chapter undergoing regular mind wipes to keep them free of the taint from the enemies they have to witness. They're armored in red ceramite bedecked with inquisitorial seals and markings. And of course, the Grey Knights are the other inquisitorially minded chapter that are often grouped in as part of the second founding, since that's a useful cover story, but they were actually founded by a separate process just around the same time. The Grey Knights were founded by Malcador the Sigillite at the end of the Heresy, created from representatives of various legions as a specialist force of psychic space marines geared around combating the newly emergent threats of demons and the warp. They weren't part of Guilliman's second founding planning, and in fact would have been hidden from view during the time, but since they needed to be explained away somehow, they're often lumped in here too. And while those are the second founding chapters we know of, from a mix of the apocryphas, the tables of successors printed in various codexes, and the records written of the chapters themselves, there are of course plenty more. There have been 26 more foundings to date, occasions where a number of Space Marine chapters have been created at once. The gene seed for these new foundings is cultivated from the batches sent back by each chapter for purity testing, both from the original progenitor chapter and from the gene seed sent by successors. So chapters in the 41st millennium could be the successors of other successors. For example, the Marines Errant are a 23rd founding successor chapter of the Eagle Warriors. In some cases, the parent chapter might be petitioned to send veterans to form a new officer corps, but in others, the original officers come from elsewhere, or the chapter might be left without a full knowledge of where their gene seed originally came from. The formation of one of these new foundings is a grave and costly endeavor, but it's happened pretty regularly over the years. The third founding, as mentioned, happened barely barely a century after this one, and others have been ordered by the High Lords as a response to various threats. The fourth founding was ordered in the aftermath of the War of the Beast. The 23rd Sentinel founding was intended to shore up Imperial defenses, but none of those was as big as with the Ultima founding. That was the most recent. It introduced the Primaris Marines to the armies of the Imperium, founding many new Primaris-only chapters and reinforcing a lot of the current ones with new Marines taken from the same gene lines. Some chapters, like the aforementioned Soul Drinkers, have even been completely reformed as a brand new Primaris chapter, carrying the colours and the symbols of the original one. The Space Marines of the second founding were very much a new template for the Imperium, and one that's been carried on into the 42nd, we think, millennium. And while nowadays it seems to be quite common that the chapters will operate a bit like the legions of old, combining their forces while prosecuting Guilliman's Indomitus Crusade, we should remember that they've always been a bit like that. The Dark Angels, Blood Angels, and Imperial Fists all kept up practices that allowed them to unofficially reunite anytime there was a big enough threat, from the War of the Beast to the Tyrannid invasion of Baal. And of course, in modelling terms, all that exists so that people can create their own chapters. The second founding was a defining point in the lore of 40k.
What did I say? I said that 40 minutes ago. I said that it's designed so that players can make their own chapters and get a personal connection when they're playing.
Hey,
or exactly, buy more plastic crack. Buy more plastic crack.
Written so that you can do whatever you want with your toy soldiers. Not all chapters are recorded. Nobody knows how many there are. So you can make up your own one and paint your models however you like.
Yeah.
Codex compliant or not. Thanks for watching.
Woo, that was a lot. That was a lot. But what it does now is it shores up my understanding of the Space Marines. It shores it up. I guess going forward, we'll get more information on individual stuff going forward. I'm sure as we do more lore videos about conflicts, stuff like that, that'll come into play. But my understanding grows, and yeah, it is not a hobby that is a realistic hobby for anybody right now. Not in this day and age. Not right now. Not at all. Okay, wait. All right, we got another $20 tip from Kratos El Grados. YouTube wouldn't let me comment this. Any woman that doesn't breed with men that makes room for all that lore in his brain deserves their small-lobed micro-dick subhumans. Well, I've got you here. You might as well go watch Sonic. Oh, and it's cutting it off again. Hold on. Hang on. Let me let's come on. All right, let's pop it out so I can get the full of it. Oh, what are you doing this to me for? What if I do like this? Oh, just stream. God damn it, Stream Elements. Let me read the full fucking thing. It's not reading me. It's not letting me read the whole thing. I'm trying to read the whole thing, and it's cutting it off at Sonic. That's like the last part I can see. That's the last part I can see. That's the last part I can see. Did you send it to me, Kratos? Oh, what happened to my DMs? That's weird. Did I accidentally close it? I must have. Okay, here's the second one. Okay, here we go. Rant against the Sonic fan base. You all ruined Sonic. Samic. Well, we're 3 hours in. Kratos, can I bump that to tomorrow? Because we are 3 hours in right now. Is that okay? Can we along with the Nick Cannon stuff, can we do that tomorrow? Is that all right? Because we are 3 hours in. And on much longer than we normally go, because that was 2 lore videos. So if you're okay with that, Kratos, you still here? If you're okay with that, we can put this on the schedule for tomorrow. I want to make sure. Yeah, think about well, I'm waiting to see if Kratos is here playing this. Think about 40K and difference 40K fantasy. Fantasy was also expensive, but not as expensive because you didn't need as much for a fantasy army than you did for a 40K army. 40K you needed way much more for because when I watched my buddies play 40K, it was way more involved than when we played fantasy. So 40K is there's more to it. There's just more to it with the models and the vehicles and all that stuff. So yeah, it really is it's super expensive. Mm. So uh let me see. So I'm waiting for Kratos to see if he's still here. I don't want to short you. I want to make sure we're okay moving that to tomorrow because we are 3 hours in at this point. Way longer than we normally go, but 2 lore videos will do that to you. It will get that. Let me see over here right now. I'm stalling for Kratos to see if he's still here or not because I don't want to shortchange it. I want to make sure he's okay with us moving it to tomorrow. But yeah, so wow, I'm right now. I'm in like overwhelmed information mode. I'm digesting everything that we just talked about, that we just heard, and it's now going thing. And I am thinking about what I want to do. I'm probably gonna when I have some time tonight, since I don't think I'm gonna be streaming Lunar tonight. I'm probably gonna go back in and mess around with my paint schemes. I mean, I have 2 more open slots that I can make some more customized paint jobs to my operations Space Marine. So I might go mess around and make a couple different ones based upon where I feel like I'm leaning from the historical stuff that we learned here, what I like the most from what I heard. So I'll probably go in and mess around with that tonight some more. So let's see. Oh wow. Kratos sent that like an hour ago. Okay, I don't think Kratos is here anymore. Well, I'm sure he's fine with us doing it tomorrow because we are 3 hours in. So right. Okay then. Let's wrap it up then with a promise of doing Kratos's 2 videos tomorrow on top of whatever else you guys want to do to celebrate Juneteenth. Ugh. Anyway, so thank you guys. It has been a great lore day. I love the Warhammer 40K stuff. I wish we were going to go play Space Marine 2 right now. I honestly do, but we're not because that's scheduled for tomorrow. So thank you guys. Remember to hit that like button. Share the stream, share the channel, share the videos, share what's going on here. We are on the road to 4,000 subs, still just 7 away as we march towards great things. So thank you and all. You guys have been great today. Obviously having a good time. I appreciate each and every one of you for supporting the channel, helping me grow, and I will catch you guys tomorrow with another stream and another video. So until then, guys, take it easy, everybody.